All right. Getting it going. Facebook should be going. Yep, there's Facebook. I see it. Settings, stream. Change that. Bang. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back. How are you guys doing? Check on into the video. Check on into the stream. Welcome back to Mercado Media. We are live covering the war in Ukraine. Evening coverage. We make sure it gets shared out. YouTube's good to go. Let's go. Hey, Daniel. Comment what city, what state, where in the world you're tuning in from. All right, here we go. Where are you guys watching from? One of the biggest growing viewer-funded, viewer-sponsored streams. Viewer-sponsored, viewer-funded. I'm not sponsored by anybody but you guys. Welcome. I'm so blessed to have you guys here. Thank you so much for choosing independent media as your guys' news source. Let me turn this down a little bit. We got Louisville, Kentucky tuned in. How you doing? Crystal River, Florida, welcome. How are we doing? Welcome. Texas, I see Eastern Washington. Hello. Hey, how you doing, Noah? Hey, Sean, welcome. Welcome. Good evening. Hey, from Little Falls. It's good to see you. Aloha from Maui. Maui in the chat. Good to see you, Maui. Hello. Hey, Pam. Good to see you. Watching from Alberta, Canada. Hey, how are you doing? British Columbia, Canada. Boston, Massachusetts. It's good to see you guys. This morning in they had the UN Security Council, an emergency UN Security Council session in which the president of Ukraine gave a speech, and we're going to be watching that as well as the video that was played. So keep in mind there will be graphic content in this stream. All right, I did it last night, and then the president of Ukraine showed it in the UN Council, and then I'm going to show it again here. And then after this stream, we're going to be going back to our policy of not showing anything too extremely graphic, but the things coming out of Bucha can't go unnoticed. You can't shy away from it. Spokane, Washington tuned in. Oh yeah, so much has happened. And thank you so much to everybody that tuned in last night and this morning. Just Mercado on the 9s, all right? Mercado on the 9s, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., give or take like 20 minutes in case I'm running a little late or what have you. So the first video we're going to be watching, we have a whole list of them. Shout out to our clip team. What is that noise? We have an interesting noise. New Jersey's tuned in. Welcome, New Jersey. It's good to see you. Thank you. Also, take a moment and like the video, share the stream. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're going to be dialing in. Here we go. All right. So, lots happened today. Let's just go right down our timeline. Follow us on Twitter if you guys would like these updates before the stream. You can definitely make that happen. Turn this down a little bit. You don't need it so bright. Up a little bit. Gotta scroll back. All right, here's the title of the video, The Convoy That Was Ambushed. And now we've seen a few of these. Convoys hit, and you know, it just goes to show the I hit the wrong button. It just goes to show the poor Russian tactics on all fronts, whether it's ground infantry, whether it's mechanized infantry. Just take a watch. And there's a tank that's sitting here in the farmland in the corn. So you got a Ukraine flag here, and then the vehicles along the road are Russian vehicles. I'm still working off of a white table, beer pong table. I don't quite have my desk yet, so all right. The cameras are in weird positions. Ontario, welcome. Hey, how you doing, Tony? Good to see you. React and share. So you got Russian tanks getting ambushed right here. Hey all, hey Georgia, Detroit, Michigan tuned in. Got a complex ambush, and then I'll break this video down after this. We'll watch it a couple times, and then we'll break it down. You can see all the ground infantry right there too. We'll break this down. Perth, Australia, welcome. Good to see you. Congratulations on your new place. Thank you. I'm glad to be set up again, back into it. The only thing I'm missing is a desk and a couple more monitors. Waiting for my next paycheck. The desk should be here. The monitors I need to go pick up this week when I get paid. Alright, and then we're not going to show that part. Alright, so I ran convoys in the military, and just even how they react to contact. Just watch this. They first take contact, the lead vehicle stops. Missed you guys as well. The lead vehicle stops. This vehicle, it's their second vehicle, gets hit. Second vehicle gets hit. Keep in mind also this convoy. Shout out to our veteran community. Any veterans in the chat? Shout out to our awesome veteran community. Go ahead and check in. Comment what branch you served in. Comment your branch. Comment. I need to turn on the welcome music. We can't have the waiting music every time. Nope. Comment your branch. Comment your years of service. So I'm speaking to a few people that might know, and I'll break it down as best I can. But you can see their ground. So right here, they're taking. It's a complex ambush. They're taking contact out of this building as well. You can see the tracer rounds coming from the second floor. Yep. Complex ambush. So you got a tank in the cornfield, and you got infantry inside of this 2-story building. Likely have 7.62 or even 50 cal capabilities in there, but definitely big guns. They definitely have big guns in there. You can see it's hard to see a couple times. They don't even know where they're shooting at. The tank's here, right? There might be some ground contact over here, but unclear what they're shooting at. Unclear what they're engaging. I'm not really seeing. I've seen this video a few times now, and there isn't really anything I can notice over here. It's right here. This is where it's at. Now it finds it. See, now it adjusts fire. Now the Russian BM, I think it's a BMP, recognizes it now. Now it's engaging. So what do we got here? We got Army 2nd Year 503rd 11 Bravo. We got 101st Airborne in the chat. Airborne. Yeah, it was awesome. 95 Bravo in the early 80s. We got United States Navy 76 to 85 MM1. We got a 15-year U.S. Marine Corps wife. Does that count? Do dependas count? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Those that serve might find a meme out of that though. There's a meme in there somewhere. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant 13 Bravo, 12 years active, 3 rendezvous with Destiny, 101st. 63rd Bravo attached to quartermaster unit. I was in the 539th Transportation Company. We became a composite truck company, which means we had our own gun trucks. So we had our own convoy security. Even though I was a 88 Mike Pogue, little truck driver, we still had to be fully trained on how to provide convoy security to a logistical element. So I was fully trained. I was a gunner, all that shit. It was a Pogue though. 88 Mike. But so now a couple of the tanks are engaging, but they're getting so bunched up right here, so bunched up, and look over here next to the fence line, and you're going to be able to see some ground infantry as well. There you go. So all of this right here on a pause, all this ground infantry right here, a whole bunch of them. And then you got these two vehicles paused here. Just listen. No, none of this is good. None of this is good at all. Even here, breaking this down, the lead vehicle just stopped completely. The lead vehicle didn't even, like, it just paused. Um, these two vehicles bunch up. Decent spacing here, decent spacing between these two, but I don't know why. I mean, militarily speaking, these vehicles should be engaging these, but they're not. It's just these two vehicles as they pass. Just now here they're starting. Now this one looked like it finally engaged it, or it's trying to, but the way that Ukraine, they got that tank in a good ass spot right there. It's in a looks like a destroyed house. I mean, it's hard, good camouflage. Is there up close? Where's the up close image of it? It's behind a farmhouse. That tank, that one tank, and then the infantry that they have in this house right here with likely 7.62 capabilities, where they got PKMs and 50 cal capabilities. It was a complex ambush from both sides. I mean, you even right here, that's kind of blurry, but you got a ground troop right here. You got, I mean, they're just running alongside the convoy. They must not have enough troop transports. The troop transports must have all got destroyed. I'm trying to find the zoomed in. And the other question I posed this morning, and I didn't really take it into factor, the United States military and how much our own, uh, how much our ground troops have communications with the air, and how much air superiority the United States military does have. Uh, but the question I posed is, seeing what we're seeing here, and like what we would say conventional warfare between two sides. I mean, they're wearing identifying factors. They're not. It's not the same type of war that the United States was just in. That a lot of veterans that I just shouted out in the chat were used to, with insurgency and counterinsurgency. IEDs out there, like all that training that we had. I mean, it's put it in the back pocket. They're using some mines and some IEDs out there, but not like the war on terror was. But here, the question that I had was, are conventional convoys like this still effective in military tactics, seeing what we're seeing with the Baraktar drones and just I mean, we're watching these convoys in 4K. You're watching, I mean, the video quality on this one's kind of crap, but most of them, I mean, damn near you can see the ground troops. You can see the tracer rounds coming out now. Technology's changed a little bit. And then with the amount of NLAWs they have out there, javelins, we saw a video, and I'll try to find it, of the Stugna taking out a Ka-52 helicopter. Unreal, with the amount of capabilities that the ground soldier has. Unreal, the amount of capabilities. I mean, in terms of maybe United States convoys, ours are okay for now. I don't know though, because seeing all this just kind of changed my opinion on that. Like, I would be running I was an 88 mic and running convoys. I would be deathly afraid of the sky now. The sky wasn't a problem, but again, keep in mind the United States has strong air superiority. Other countries don't have the same type of capabilities and technology we have to protect even the smallest of elements. This element is out there on their own, and the communication is just within this element. That's it. They don't have any higher. They're not radioing. They're not radioing headquarters. They're not radioing anybody. I mean, likely just elements out there with orders given from where they came from. This whole thing, if this was United States against this convoy, just telling you now, we'd have artillery all over this. We'd have one sweep of the, oh my goodness, my mind, help. Uh-oh. Oh, I have this sometimes where I'm on a roll, and then my whole thought process just drops as part of my PTSD and shit. I'll be on a roll, and what's the name of the what's the name of it? Burn. Quick, help me out, chat. The A-10. The A-10, thank you. The A-10 gunner. The A-10 would just take out this entire element right here, including the ground forces that are next to it. I mean, they got like they got 2 platoons worth of troops out there running alongside of this thing. Thank you, everybody. Shout out to the chat. Yes, the A-10. No, the A-10. F-16 would be, yeah, the F-16 would handle it too, but one sweep. Yeah, thank you, chat. They're so bunched up, and even here, like, it's so similar to all the other convoy videos that we've seen, and I'm not sure where this one is. I don't think we got an exact location from this yet. Global military info. But the ones that were, yeah, see, it's just a Ukrainian T-64 BV tank, so it doesn't really give a location. But the other convoys that we saw hit that went viral, that a lot of you guys might have seen footage from, were outside of Brovary. That was a couple weeks ago, maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, to the east of Kyiv, right outside the capital city. There was convoys that were getting absolutely destroyed by Ukrainian ground forces, by ambushes in the woodlines, and they made quick work of it on the ground with the assistance of some Bayraktar drones. But I'm not quite sure where this one was. Likely in the region or outside of the region. They don't even try any type of recovery on their vehicles. There's no radio for assistance, check and see if there's guys alive at all. They just leave it. And then their lead vehicle, then they wait till, so the complex ambushes, they hit the second vehicle. The first vehicle stops for some reason, and then they wait for more elements to get up further, and then they set up the 7.62s or 50 cals high caliber machine guns they got up here to take these forward elements in the front. The lead vehicle just sitting there. But again, they don't have, I mean, what's the lead vehicle really gonna, I mean, that guy just got out, it looked like. There's a couple guys right here. Looked like he just dismounted. Pretty well done complex ambush by the Ukrainian military here. Just exposes more of how terrible the Russian military is. I mean, look how bunched up these two are now. Just leaving this vehicle there. In the U.S. Army, you would set up a perimeter around this, and because we don't leave anyone behind, right? So you'd set up a vehicle right here to provide protection. With a tank, though, that'd be tough. You likely have to pick a direction and just you pick a direction and just kind of disperse and get in some concealment, because you don't know where you're really getting hit from if you're on this element. It's easy to see from here because you're in the sky and we're looking right at it. But in this element, it's like, I mean, right away you were seeing this first one, he was just shooting all over the place. He had no idea where he was shooting. This one was hit. Yep. Thank you, everybody, for checking on into the stream. So this one, you'd have a recovery effort to try to get your guys out of there, but Russia doesn't do that at all. Terrible tactics. Terrible. All right. Next video, well, let's just keep going down the list here. So that was the convoy that was hit. I mean, I'm sure there's many experts that are destroying that, going through it. What is this? The Mercy class hospital ship leaving San Diego for what? For Ukraine? Someone in the chat a couple weeks ago said that would be a good use of this thing. They had it. Didn't they have one of these ships in New York City when the pandemic started? There's that big hospital ship. So more U.S. sanctions against Russia will be put in place tomorrow. So again, for our 9 a.m. audience, we're going to have some news to go through.
It is expected, or you can expect, I should say, as many of you have reported, that they will target Russian government officials, their family members, Russian-owned financial institutions, also state-owned enterprises. It's a part of the continuation of our efforts to put consequences in place, hold Russian officials accountable. And again, those announcements will be made tomorrow. Go ahead.
Should be interesting. How many more sanctions to hold Russia accountable can we go through? How many more? I mean, it's gone through every single major world organization. Every single world organization, from the G7, the UN, the NATO, the EU, the AARP, the NCAA, all of them. They've all disowned and disavowed Russia and have sanctioned Russia. How much more? I mean,
it is expected, or you can expect, I should say, as many of you have reported, that they will target Russian government officials, their family members, Russian-owned financial institutions, also state-owned enterprises. It's a part of the continuation of our efforts to put consequences in place, hold Russian officials accountable. And again, those announcements will be made tomorrow. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll see. We'll have to see what that sanctions package is going to look like. Definitely gonna have to see that. Situation in Borodianka could be worse than Bucha, I should say. Borodianka. So a lot of these cities, we're going to be starting to get images and video coming to see the aftermath. Here's Borodianka in the Kyiv Oblast. Even more to the northwest of Bucha and Irpin, Vorzel. So here's Bucha and Irpin, and then here's Borodianka right here. A little bit further to the northwest. So the situation could be worse than that of Bucha. This is a clip from a Russian BTR-82A firing its 30 Mike cannon at buildings in Mariupol. So at this point, Mariupol, likely military targets inside of buildings at this point. I mean, the city is completely decimated, and it's just like a war zone city. There's maybe a handful of civilians in pockets of the city now at this point. But it's a war zone city. Russia has not yet taken it at this point. Russia has not taken it. It's still under Ukrainian forces' control. The city of Mariupol, southeastern port city. continue on. This is in Bucha. Russians have been going house to house carrying out executions. So, with any coverage of Bucha, I'm letting you guys know it's graphic in nature. All right? Graphic coverage of Bucha the whole way.
This is just one of many houses here in Bucha destroyed by Russian soldiers. And Russian troops didn't just bomb this.
Let's give credit to the journalist. Hold on. Richard Engel reporting.
This is just one of many houses here in Bucha destroyed by Russian soldiers. And Russian troops didn't just bomb this house. This was the Abramov's house, where Iryna lived with her husband Oleg and Iryna's father. And after Russian troops shelled the house, the family came rushing out and they found the Russian soldiers here. The Russians grabbed Oleg, started to talk to him, and they brought him down this street and they put him on his knees. Iryna was just coming out of the door and she was able to see the Russians executing her husband while he was on his knees. And there's still some of the blood here on the pavement. The body was taken away. And this family's story is typical of other families' experiences here in Bucha. They say that Russian soldiers were going house to house, carrying out executions. Bodies have been found with their hands tied behind their back. Because of the violence, because Russian troops were patrolling, Iryna wasn't even able to collect his body. It stayed here for weeks. Now it has been brought away by Ukrainian authorities. They brought away so many bodies from here, and they are still looking for more. And as Russian troops pull back from areas like Bucha, more and more evidence of their atrocities is emerging.
All right. Richard Engel reporting one more time.
This is just one of many houses here in Bucha destroyed by Russian soldiers. And Russian troops didn't just bomb this house. This was the Abramov's house, where Iryna lived with her husband Oleg and Iryna's father. And after Russian troops shelled the house, the family came rushing out and they found the Russian soldiers here. The Russians grabbed Oleg, started to talk to him, and they brought him down this street and they put him on his knees. Iryna was just coming out of the door and she was able to see the Russians executing her husband while he was on his knees. And there's still some of the blood here on the pavement. The body was taken away. And this family's story is typical of other families' experiences here in Bucha. They say that Russian soldiers were going house to house, carrying out executions. Bodies have been found with their hands tied behind their back. Because of the violence, because Russian troops were patrolling, Iryna wasn't even able to collect his body. It stayed here for weeks. Now it has been brought away by Ukrainian authorities. They brought away so many bodies from here, and they are still looking for more. And as Russian troops pull back from areas like Bucha, more and more evidence of their atrocities is emerging.
More and more evidence of the atrocities are emerging. So before we get into Zelensky's speech to the UN, we'll just go over some of the latest updates. The Czech Republic has become the first country to donate tanks to Ukraine. Czech Deputy Defense Minister Thomas Kopensky says that country has sent more than a dozen modernized Soviet-designed T-72M tanks. Reported that Russian forces are blocked in the Kherson region, the Kryvyi Rih direction. They are given a few days to surrender. If not, they will be taken prisoner. 8 Russian cruise missiles have been intercepted by Ukraine's army for the last 24 hours. Turkey, Estonia announced return of embassies to Kyiv. The Turkish Embassy in Ukraine announced its embassy in Ukraine will return to Kyiv from Chernivtsi and resume operations on April 6. Chernivtsi, I should say. The U.S. will send an additional $100 million in Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. Multiple sources familiar with the matter tell CNBC. Over 400 people missing from the Hostomel in Kyiv Oblast, and around 5,000 Russian war crimes are under investigation in Ukraine. Prosecutor General Iryna Venediktova said at a briefing in Bucha on April 5th. So, we're going to be watching President Zelensky's address in full to the UN this morning, in case you had missed it. And then I do want to remind you that at the end of his speech, they played a video, and the video is graphic in nature, and we're just going to play it once. We're going to play the whole video once, and that be it. But I did want to let you guys know about that. So how long is it? About an 18-minute clip. 18-minute clip from his address to the United Nations, and then apparently there's a vote tomorrow on the matter. I need to look into that further and see exactly what the UN is going to do with this. But they basically all went around the table and said words and then said, all right, meeting adjourned. And that was that this morning. So this, again, is President Zelensky's address to the United Nations, followed by a video that he wanted the entire UN to see.
His Excellency Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine.
Шановна пані голово, шановний пане генеральний секретар, шановні члени Радбезу та інші учасники цього засідання. Дякую за можливість. Впевнений, мене сьогодні почують і всі представники держав-членів ООН. Вчора я повернувся з нашого міста Буча, днями звільненого від військ Російської Федерації. Складно знайти такий воєнний злочин, який окупанти не вчинили би там. Російські військові розшукували і цілеспрямовано вбивали кожного, хто служив нашій державі. Вони розстрілювали жінок з дверима будинків, коли підходили і просто кликали того, хто є живий. Вони вбивали цілі родини, дорослих вбивали і дітей, і намагались спалити їх тіла. Я звертаюсь до вас від імені народу, який щоденно вшановує пам'ять загиблих. Щоденно, зранку. Пам'ять загиблих мирних людей, яких вбивали пострілом у потилицю або в око після катувань, яких розстрілювали просто на вулицях, яких кидали в колодці, щоб вони там загинули у стражданнях, яких вбивали в квартирах, в будинках, підриваючи гранатами, давили танками, просто давили танками в цивільних автівках посеред дороги заради задоволення, яким відрубали кінцівки, прирізали горло, яких гвалтували і вбивали на очах своїх же дітей. Їм виривали язик лише тому, що не чули від них того, що хотіли почути. Чим це відрізняється від того, що робили терористи Даїш на захопленій ними території? Хіба що тим, що це робить постійний член Ради безпеки Організації Об'єднаних Націй. Руйнує внутрішню єдність держав, руйнує державні кордони, заперечує право більш ніж десятка народів на 2 континентах на самовизначення і самостійне державне життя. Проводить послідовну політику знищення етнічної та релігійної різноманітності, розпалює війни і свідомо веде їх так, щоб вбити якнайбільшу кількість звичайних мирних людей, щоб зруйнувати якнайбільше звичайні мирні міста, щоб залишити в країні, куди заводить свої війська, тільки руїни і масові поховання. Все це ви бачили. Підтримує на державному рівні ненависть і намагається експортувати її в інші держави за допомогою своєї системи пропаганди і політичної корупції. Провокує глобальну продовольчу кризу, яка може призвести до голоду в державах Африки, в державах Азії і точно закінчиться масштабним політичним хаосом в країнах, де стабільність продовольчих цін – базовий фактор внутрішньої безпеки. Тож, де ця безпека, яку має гарантувати Рада безпеки? Її немає, хоча і є Рада безпеки, як ні в чому не бувало. Тож, де той мир, заради гарантування якого створювалася Організація Об'єднаних Націй? Це очевидно, що ключова інституція світу, яка повинна забезпечувати примус будь-яких агресорів до миру, просто не може ефективно працювати. Зараз світ побачив, що російські військові зробили в Бучі, поки утримували наше місто в окупації, але світу ще тільки належить побачити, що вони зробили в інших окупованих містах, в інших окупованих районах нашої країни. Географія може бути різною, але жорстокість однакова, злочини однакові і відповідальність має бути неминучою. Пані та панове, я хочу нагадати вам статтю 1 глави 1 статуту ООН. В чому мета нашої організації? В тому, щоб підтримувати мир і примушувати до миру. А зараз статут ООН порушується буквально з першої статті. А якщо так, то який сенс в усіх інших статтях? На сьогодні саме внаслідок дій Росії на території моєї держави, на території України скоюються найстрашніші воєнні злочини за увесь час після завершення Другої світової війни. Російські війська свідомо знищують в попіл українські міста артилерійськими, авіаційними ударами. Свідомо блокують міста, створюючи в них масовий голод. Свідомо розстрілюють колони цивільних на дорогах, які намагаються просто врятуватися з територій військових дій. Свідомо підривають навіть укриття, в яких ховаються мирні люди від авіаційних ударів. Свідомо створюють на тимчасово окупованих територіях такі умови, щоб там було вбито якнайбільше цивільних людей. Масові вбивства у нашому місті Буча – це лише один, на жаль, з багатьох приклад того, що здійснюється окупантами на нашій землі протягом вже 41 дня. А є ще багато інших таких місць, про які світу ще тільки доведеться дізнатись повну правду. І Маріуполь, Харків, Херсон, Чернігів, Ахтирка, Бородянка та ще десятки українських громад, кожна з яких як Буча. Я знаю, і ви прекрасно знаєте, що говоритимуть представники Росії у відповідь на звинувачення у цих злочинах. Вони це вже неодноразово говорили. Найпоказовіше після збиття російськими силами з російської ж зброї малайзійського Боїнгу над Донбасом або під час війни в Сирії, вони будуть звинувачувати всіх тільки виправдати себе. Вони будуть говорити, що нібито є різні версії, а яка з них правдива, нібито неможливо поки що встановити. Вони будуть говорити навіть те, що тіла убитих нібито підкинули, а всі відео постановочні. Але зараз 2022 рік. Є безперечні докази, є супутникові знімки, є можливість провести повне, прозоре розслідування. Саме в цьому ми зацікавлені. Максимальний доступ журналістів, максимальна співпраця з міжнародними інституціями, залучення Міжнародного кримінального суду, повна правда, повна відповідальність. Впевнений, в цьому має бути зацікавлена і кожна держава в системі ООН. Для чого? Для того, щоб раз і назавжди покарати того, хто вважає себе привілейованим, вважає себе безкарним, а отже, показати усім іншим потенційним воєнним злочинцям світу, що вони також будуть неминуче покарані. Якщо карають того, хто найбільший, то буде покараний кожен. Для чого Росія прийшла в Україну, скажіть мені? Я відповім, керівництво Росії відчуває себе колонізаторами, як у давні часи. Їм потрібне наше багатство і наші люди. Росія вже депортувала на свою територію десятки тисяч наших громадян.
Again, this is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking to the UN Security Council this morning. We watched this live at the 9 a.m. stream, so we're just rewatching it and replaying it. So if you're wondering what we're watching a replay of Zelensky's speech to the UN Security Council.
Далі сотні. Викрала більше 2000 дітей. Просто викрала тисячі дітей і продовжує це робити. Росія хоче перетворити українців на мовчазних рабів. Російські військові відкрито грабують наші міста, села, які вони захопили. Це мародерство найвищого масштабу. Вони крадуть все. Від продовольства до золотих сережок, які просто виривають з кров'ю. Ми маємо справу з державою, яка перетворює право вето у Раді безпеки ООН на право смерті, яка підриває всю архітектуру глобальної безпеки, яка дозволяє злу бути безкарним і поширюється світом, знищуючи все, що тільки може працювати на мир і безпеку. Якщо це продовжиться, то фіналом буде те, що кожна з держав зможе розраховувати тільки на силу зброї, щоб гарантувати собі безпеку, а не на міжнародне право, не на міжнародні інституції. ООН можна буде просто закрити. Пані та панове, чи готові ви до закриття ООН? Чи вважаєте ви, що час міжнародного права минув? Якщо ваша відповідь ні, то діяти потрібно зараз. Діяти негайно. Потрібно негайно повертати силу статуту ООН. Потрібно негайно реформувати систему ООН таким чином, щоб право вето не було правом смерті, щоб була справедлива представленість в Радбезі усіх регіонів світу. Потрібно негайно примушувати агресора до миру. Потрібна рішучість, ланцюжок масових вбивств від Сирії до Сомалі, від Афганістану до Ємена та Лівії мав би бути зупинений. І вже давно, якщо чесно, якби хоч раз тиранія отримала таку відповідь на розв'язану нею війну, що перестала би існувати, а після неї був би гарантований чесний мир, то світ точно змінився би. І тоді, можливо, не було би війни у нас, війни в моїй країні проти нашого народу, українського народу, проти людей. Але світ дивився і не хотів бачити ані окупацію Криму, ані ще раніше війни проти Грузії, ані ще раніше з відчуженням від Молдови цілого Придністровського регіону. І на те, як Росія готувала ґрунт для ще інших конфліктів та війн поблизу своїх кордонів. Як це зупинити? Негайно притягувати російських військових і тих, хто віддав їм накази, до відповідальності за воєнні злочини на території України. Кожен, хто віддав злочинні накази і хто їх виконував, вбиваючи людей, опиняться під трибуналом, який має бути аналогічним Нюрнберзькому процесу. Я хочу нагадати дипломатам Росії, що після Другої світової війни покарання не оминуло таку людину, як фон Ріббентроп. І хочу нагадати також і архітекторам злочинної політики Росії, що покарання наздогнало і Адольфа Айхмана. Ніхто з винних не сховається. Ніхто. Але головне, що сьогодні саме час трансформувати систему, стрижнем якої є Організація Об'єднаних Націй. Щоб це зробити, пропонуємо скликати глобальну конференцію. І ми просимо це зробити вже у мирному Києві, для того, щоб визначитись, як будемо реформувати світову систему безпеки, як будемо реально гарантувати непорушність загальновизнаних кордонів і цілісність держав, як будемо утверджувати верховенство міжнародного права. Зараз цілком очевидно, що цілі, які закладали Сан-Франциско в 1945 році при створенні глобальної безпекової міжнародної організації, не досягнуті. І досягнути їх без реформ неможливо. А отже, ми повинні зробити все, що від нас з вами залежить, щоб передати наступним поколінням дієву ООН з можливістю превентивно реагувати на безпекові виклики, а отже і гарантувати мир, запобігати агресії і примушувати агресорів до миру, мати рішучість і змогу карати, якщо принципи миру порушуються. Виключень, привілеїв бути більше не може. Всі мають бути рівними. Усі учасники міжнародних відносин, незалежно від економічної сили, географічної площі та індивідуальних амбіцій. Домінуючою має стати сила миру, сила справедливості. Це сила безпеки, як про це людство завжди і мріяло. Україна готова дати майданчик для одного з головних офісів оновленої системи безпеки. Як офіс в Женеві спеціалізується на правах людини, як офіс в Найробі на захисті навколишнього середовища, так офіс в Києві, офіс Ю-24 може спеціалізуватись на превентивних заходах для підтримання миру. Я хочу нагадати нашу мирну місію в Афганістані. Коли тільки за рахунок своїх сил ми, українці, евакуювали з цієї країни понад 1000 людей. І була найгарячіша фаза, але люди потребували допомоги. І Україна прийшла, і як і інші держави. Ми забрали звідти людей різних національностей, різної віри, не тільки українців, афганців, громадян європейських держав, Сполучених Штатів, Канади. Ми не дивились, хто потребує допомоги. Це наша людина або не наша людина. Ми рятували усіх. Якби кожного разу, коли є така потреба, кожен у світі мав впевненість, що допомога прийде, світ був би однозначно безпечніший. Тому Україна має необхідне моральне право, щоб пропонувати реформу світової системи безпеки. Ми довели, що допомагаємо іншим не тільки у щасті, але і в темні часи. І зараз ми потребуємо рішень від Ради безпеки для миру в Україні. І якщо ви не знаєте, як ухвалити це рішення, то ви можете зробити дві речі. Або усунути Росію як агресора і джерело війни від блокування рішень щодо її ж агресії, її ж війни. І тоді зробити все, що може встановити мир. Або покажіть, як можна переформатуватись і працювати реально заради миру. Або, якщо ваш чинний формат безальтернативний і виходу просто немає, то далі тільки саморозпуск. Я переконаний, що ви здатні обійтись без третього варіанту. Мир потрібен Україні. Мир потрібен нам. Мир потрібен Європі. Мир потрібен світу. І на сам кінець, я дуже прошу вас зараз. Перегляньте відео. Невеличке. Дайте нам ще 1 хвилину. Відео про те, що прийшло на заміну вашій силі через те, що хтось один може зловживати своїми правами. Ось до чого призводить безкарність. І якщо є можливість, подивіться це відео, тому що можливості усіх приїхати до нас і побачити це немає. Тож подивіться цей фрагмент.
All right, if you've already seen this video, how long is it? A minute, 2 minutes long? You can come back in 2 minutes if you don't want to see it again, understandably. But this is an extremely graphic video. Just letting you guys know now. Extremely graphic. We've stayed away from images in this nature, but for this, the scenes from Bucha, we've been showing it in Bucha only. So if you've already seen this, for the next 2 minutes, all right. So that
I'd
is
like to thank the delegation of Ukraine for sharing that video with us. The images are harrowing. Speaking in my national capacity, we are appalled by what we have seen and reiterate our solidarity with Ukraine.
all right. That was the President Zelensky's speech, as well as video from aftermath of the Russian soldiers in Bucha, which, by the way, anybody that's bringing up Azov Battalion whataboutisms in the chat on both YouTube and Facebook, extremely sad that you're using whataboutisms from the Azov Battalion, which is located to the southeast of the country in Mariupol, for any discussion around, I mean, this is Bucha here. The Azov battalion is nowhere near Bucha, and I would very strongly question whether or not that the existence of the Azov battalion is justification for full-scale invasion and killing of civilians in multiple cities across the entire country, as well as the will to continue on after Ukraine to multiple other cities multiple other countries within the same region. Man. It's just getting worse. It's reaching more and more people. The Russian propaganda is getting worse. It's getting worse. What else we got? There's nowhere for me to return to, and I don't know whether or not my wife is alive or not.
All they had to warn off the Russian guns was a white scarf. They've survived the long journey through the front line. But now they're pleading for help for those left in Mariupol.
I feel pity for the kids, the women. How many homes were destroyed? You can rebuild houses, but you can't bring people back.
Hundreds are still managing to make it to Zaporizhia each day. Their future is uncertain, the fate of many more unknown.
These people have had no choice but to get out by themselves, as that official aid convoy is still unable to make progress. And they are, in a sense now, the luckier ones, because of course the fear is south of here, behind the Russian lines that they've come through, the war is likely to get much worse.
Russia has laid siege to Mariupol for over a month now. Nearly 5,000 people, including more than 200 children, have been killed, say Ukraine officials.
This is your home.
Lyubov shows me what's left of where she lived.
No,
With her son and granddaughter.
No. Dumb comment. Patches. I think we can all agree that Ukraine is at fault for a lot of what's going on. Absolutely not. Why? Because they want their independence. Ukraine's at fault for wanting independence. And again, two things can be true. Ukraine wants their independence and deserves independence. And they were also stupid in allowing that Azov battalion to the southeast to be full of Nazis from 2014. It's been denazified since then. There's two truths. Two truths. Stupid government move by just allowing anybody and everyone to join the military there. Military, the war is not good for anyone. It's two truths. And they deserve their independence, and they're fighting for their independence. It's clowning, dude.
Sheltered in the basement for days. This was my daughter's house, she says.
And what do you feel when you look at these pictures?
What do I feel? I can't feel anything, says Lyubov. I love Mariupol. Russia being so big, people are scared of it. They shouldn't be. Little Ukraine is fighting back, she says. Lyubov and her son Valery walked for miles and drove for days. Now they're helped at this Red Cross centre. But others want to get back to Mariupol. Yevgeny left for a work trip just before the invasion. He texts his wife Svetlana every day, but there's no answer. They last spoke a month ago in a desperate call during the shelling, and now their home is gone.
It doesn't exist anymore. It's been destroyed by shelling or an airstrike. I don't have anywhere to go. And I still don't know whether my wife is alive or not.
They're urgently trying to track down the missing, as the world braces to see what else lies beyond the front lines here. But for some now at least, it's the end of a journey of fear and survival.
No, Brittany, I was correcting somebody in the YouTube chat that was trying to suggest that there's any blame on Ukraine at all here.
Tom Bateman, BBC News.
Why? Because they want their it's just so silly, and then for any Americans to even have that opinion. Freedom America, freedom, right? Independence. But then when you see another country want their independence because Russia influences our country so much, it's really too bad to see. All right, let's look at the very, very latest. The EU discusses the possibility of imposing sanctions against Putin's daughters. Okay, are they going to put sanctions on the dog next? First, they put they're going to do sanctions on the parrot, their parakeet. Ukrainian siren alert. Like, what is that? Does Putin's daughters have any foothold in the Kremlin politics? Putin's daughters. Putin's daughters face possible EU and US sanctions over Ukraine sanctions. Oh, I'm not subscribing. There we go, Market Watch. The European Union has proposed sanctioning 2 daughters of President Vladimir Putin, according to diplomats familiar with the plan. A move that would add the Russian leader's closest family members to a growing list of individuals sanctioned in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What is there really? The EU member states it must approve of the sanctions, which are among dozens of newly proposed targeted travel bans and asset freezes against Russian business people, politicians, officials, and their families. EU officials announced details of other new sanctions earlier Tuesday. They include a ban on imports of Russian coal, slashing the access of Russian road carriers and ships into the bloc, restrictions aimed at oligarchs and their families, and the blocking of some high-technology machinery exports. Putin doesn't speak publicly about his family. He has 2 daughters with his former wife, according to the Kremlin. It isn't known if Putin has other children, and it could be learned if the daughters being targeted in the EU sanctions were those he publicly acknowledged. So then what the hell is that? It couldn't be learned if we couldn't learn if the daughters were being targeted. What kind of language is that? So they're not even quite sure if those daughters that are a part of these sanctions are even daughters that Putin recognizes as his own daughters. What is that about? So this is a nothing. This looks like a whole waste of somebody's money. But they can't even verify that those are his actual daughters, because he doesn't talk about his family. So they're sanctioning U.S. sanctions on his daughters, apparently. The U.S. to provide additional $100 million in security assistance to Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced on April 5th that he authorized the security assistance to meet Ukraine's urgent need for additional anti-armor systems. So the deal that we had read was Poland sending, not Poland. Let's just Google it. I'm getting the jet story mixed up. U.S. tank deal. Oh, it is Poland. I figured I have so many countries going on in my head at once in so many different cities. Poland signs deal to purchase of 250 Abrams tanks. Warsaw, April 5th. Poland on Tuesday signed a deal with Washington to purchase 250 Abrams. The M1A2 Abrams tanks as it seeks to bolster its military in an effort to deter potential Russian aggression on its eastern border. The state of Abrams tanks to Poland, which is also home to a future U.S. missile defense site, is another sign of deep and growing defense relationship with the United States. It follows the deployment of nearly 5,000 additional U.S. troops to Poland, as well as additional fighter aircraft as part of Washington's response to the Ukraine crisis. Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak said the deal is worth approximately $4.75 billion and that the first tanks will be delivered this year. So the Poland is sending, they're giving the Ukrainians tanks at like Soviet tanks, basically, because they know how to use them. The State Department approved an estimated $6 billion sale of M1 Abrams tanks and other equipment to Poland as tensions on the eastern flank of Europe remain high over Russian aggression aimed at Ukraine. So again, here's the map. So again, all of the area in red is inside of Ukraine. This is Russian forces inside of Ukraine, which they had no business. Russia had no business taking Donbass and all of the propaganda that they've been pumping there. And that's why there's no justification for this at all. And so many people have been duped by Russia propaganda, and it's just so wild to even believe. Russia's invading, anyways. So they're on the eastern flank. They retreated. They got their butt kicked to the northwest and to the northeast of Kyiv. So the Russian forces are no longer up here. They're no longer over here. Hey, listen, little foreshadowing for you guys. This again, opinion time, or foreshadowing opinion time. That's what I'll call it. So I feel that the next move that Russia is going to make is going to be as much influence as I can over our midterm elections in the United States as possible. We have midterm elections this year, congressional midterms. They're already fighting a war of attrition. All right, this war is going to last a while. It's going to last through the summer, could go into the winter, or could go to the fall, could go to the winter. They're going to continue hitting civilian targets. They're going to continue hitting targets that provide resources like oil refineries, anything that they can, just to continue devastation. It's a war of attrition. So I feel, in my opinion, again, opinion time, that a big influence on our election is going to take place. We'll see if I'm wrong. All right. So remember what I said now, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong. I hope I'm wrong. All right. Poland has requested to purchase 250 General Dynamics land systems manufactured M1A2 SEP V3 Abrams tanks, 250 AN VLQ-12 Crew Duke counter improvised explosive device systems, 26 M88A2 Hercules combat recovery vehicles, and 17 M1110 joint assault bridges. So not just tanks, they're sending a few other things too, huh? Poland also plans to buy, as part of the deal, 276 M250 cals. And they're getting 500 240s. Other contractors involved in the sale are BAE Systems, Leonardo DRS, of course Honeywell, Raytheon Technologies, and of course Lockheed Martin. I've kind of heard of BAE Systems. I haven't heard of Leonardo DRS or Raytheon. I'm sure anybody that more combat arms guys will probably know those two, but definitely I know Lockheed Martin and Honeywell. Last month, top Republicans in Congress pushed to accelerate the proposed sale of Abrams tanks, which have been pending since last summer in the light of escalating crisis with Russia. Polish officials had said they expected the first delivery of the tanks in 2022, while the GDLS said the deal could take 2 years to close. Interesting. So although that we're getting reports that the first delivery could be in 2022, the deal could take 2 years to close. Then what's the point? What's that for then, right? Then they just get some Abrams 2 years from now in 2024. After meeting with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, where's mine? Do I have it still? Where's mine? It could take up to 2 years. After meeting with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on October 2021, Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak said Austin thought equipping the Polish army with Abrams tanks is absolutely justified as it builds interoperability, that's a big word, between American and Polish forces. Poland, whose bridges are currently equipped with Leopard 2A4, so bolstering Polish defense capabilities. And in a conflict, it's unlikely Poland would deploy its heavy forces to Ukraine or Belarus, but improving Poland's ability to defend itself could blunt a potential avenue of attack for Russia. On these maneuverable protected forces would have a better chance of standing up to Russian artillery. Director of the defense program at the Center of the New American Security recently told Defense News. Poland has purchased or planned to purchase a number of American weapon systems over the last several years, including the Raytheon-made Patriot. The Patriot missile system is a Raytheon Technologies arms company. So that Patriot system that we've seen at the border in a few videos, that's from Raytheon. Along with Northrop Grumman developed integrated battle command system. So they're getting more than just tanks. They approved, the U.S. State Department approved a $6 billion and other equipment. So we are ordering the most modern tanks. So this is from Defense News. Straight from Defense News. So we are ordering the most modern tanks. Tanks available in the best equipped version. Tanks that are combat proven. Tanks which were constructed to counter the most modern Russian T-14 tanks. I mean, if they're using a bunch of T-72s, the Abrams will absolutely destroy that. Can we do a side-by-side tank? I wonder if there's a good video. Tank size. Hold on. Tank size comparison. No, those are German. Main battle tanks. Here we go. I wonder if they'll show a comparison to how monstrous the Abrams is compared. It's not. It wouldn't even be.
The following illustrations belong to David B., the owner and creator of the website Tank.
There's the Abrams right here.
Encyclopedia, a website that is all about technologies and the evolution of the tank world.
That's a T-84. I don't really see any. There's a T-80. I mean,
wide. The first online tank museum. To check out the website, and the link is in the description.
All right, here we go. Well, I'll pause it when I see. There's a T-54. So they're going smallest to largest here. Smallest to largest for tank size. So you guys get an idea of how bigger the M1 Abrams is in comparison to Soviet tanks. There's one of them right here, T-54, T-55, 1947 to present. Length 29.5 feet, 9 meters. What mass is 36 tons. (1952 to present). This, I mean, in museums maybe. There's a Type 59. We've hit 2 U.S. tanks now. They haven't hit the Abrams yet. There's a T-62. Yes, Abrams have U.S. crewmen. They got a good old 19-year-old private loading it, whereas these things have auto loaders, which is why you see a lot of the tops getting blown off. A lot of people are like, well, why is the turret blown off and why is it separated from the tank? It's because they have auto loaders, which sounds great, right? Sounds like a good idea so you don't have a little private in there loading the cannon, but it's too easy to hit it and then blow up everybody in the tank and then blow the top off because it's an autoloader. We still haven't hit the Abrams yet. There's pros and cons to the autoloader, yeah. I could see that. There's a T-72. So we got a couple of them coming back to back here. T-72, that's a Soviet tank. 31 and nearly 31 3/4 foot. 41.5 tons. There's a Type 80, a Type 88. I haven't really seen many of these in there. I haven't really seen Type 80s being used. They've had this one. T-80s. They've been using T-80s. Still haven't hit the Abrams yet. Oh yeah, the German Panzer tank will be one of the last. That thing was. There we go. There it is. Oh, that's the M1 Abrams. I wonder if they're gonna have the M1A2 then. That's the M1. Oh, Gulf War, Desert Storm. For real. So this is Kissinger's wet dream. For real. More tanks. The US is like 18,000. I'm trying to find where the M1A2 is. It's There's China's main battle tank. There's Ukraine's T-84. There's the T-84 Ukraine has. This is one of the tanks that was engaged. The T-84 was engaging that convoy in the beginning of the stream. Goodness. Look like some futuristic tanks. Oh, they didn't have... Okay. Well, they had the M1 on there. They don't even have the I don't trust this list now. They don't even have the Panzer tank on there. Alright. So that'll give you an idea of the size comparison, because you've seen a lot of tanks now. It's from January 9th. That's too long ago. Comment where you guys are tuning in from. Let's do a viewer check-in. Where in the world are you guys watching from? What city and what state? Go ahead and comment. I'm Andrew Mercado from Mercado Media Productions. I'm streaming from Minnesota. I'm an independent journalist. I do my own boots-on-the-ground journalism when I can. And I do independent media from home, breaking down the latest news as I can from here. So go ahead and introduce yourself, comment where you're watching from as we dial in to the latest. I got to pull up a Speak the Truth video, as well as a few others. We got Anchorage, Alaska tuned in. Welcome. Minnesota, Indiana, Utah is tuned in. Welcome. Canada, Omaha, Nebraska, York, Pennsylvania, Richland, Washington. Welcome, welcome. New York City, Massachusetts is tuned in. Seattle, Washington. Welcome. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Northfield, Minnesota. Dallas, Texas. Sydney, Australia. Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Good to see you. Australia. Canada. Corpus Christi, Texas. Hilton, New York. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Canada. Richland, Washington. York, Pennsylvania. It's good to see you. Toledo, Ohio. St. Paul Park, Minnesota. Brisbane, Australia. Good to see you. Buckeye Lake, Ohio. Canada is tuned in. Sacramento, California. Utah. Good to have you guys all here with us. Again, this is a viewer-sponsored, viewer-funded stream. Thank you so much to our supporters, our subscribers, our members, everybody that follows the page, everybody that engages with the content, likes the video, all of that. You guys keep the dream going, keep it going strong. All right. Back into the latest. Sean Penn and his documentary. Sean Penn heaps praise, admiration, respect, and love for President Zelensky, who embodies everything that is the American aspiration and what opportunity for all of us to see a living example of what we want to be and and be part of creating that and defending it. Here we go right here. Here's a T-72, Ukraine, an archaic T-72 AV captured in recent days by Ukrainian forces.
Він так просто не відкриється цей танк. Він так просто не відкриється цей танк.
Put a whole bunch of concealment around it. Ukraine has seriously damaged an abandoned Russian T-72B3 tank somewhere in the Chernivtsi Oblast. It's got the O on it. That's the Belarusian troops. Oh, the unit that's near the Belarusian border. Where did it say Chernivtsi? Chernivtsi's up here to the northeast. So here's Kyiv and Chernivtsi. All of New Zealand, welcome. Thank you guys for choosing Mercado Media to tune in for independent media. When the midterms come around and we're going to have more, listen, it's already set in stone. There's going to be plenty in the United States going on when the elections come around. We're already there we're already at that point. There will be protests, there will be events, and I'll be out there again, all right, covering my own news, which I miss doing. And again, Andrew Kimmel offered one of these clown trolls that are just hating on, or not hating, that's a terrible way to put it, but they are towing the Russian propaganda line, and he offered a full paid expense trip to go and report from on the ground. What an opportunity. What an opportunity that would be. What is this here? Ukraine, a Russian PP 2005 pontoon bridge was destroyed along with 3 supply trucks after Ukraine advances. A little loud. Some videos are actually, hold on. I'll leave that there and we'll turn this down a little bit. Yes, it is good to see less red on the map. You know, there's no more red. All the red to the northeast and to the northwest of Kyiv up to Chernobyl. They've cleared all the Russians out. All the Russian forces out. Now the Russian forces have focused on the eastern region of Ukraine. Ukraine further claimed recent Russian losses of BMP-2 and T-72 variant. Much love from New York. Thank you. Oh, also from Matt from New York. Hello. We got Eric on Facebook from New York and Matt on YouTube from New York. Ukraine, massive Russian losses in the Hostomel airport. There was a early helicopter battle. Anybody remember the helicopter battle of the Hostomel airport? Like day 2 or 3, we were watching it. There was just clips coming out left and right of that was one of the biggest early battles of the war, was of that airport, and that's here on the map. Big helicopter battles. Helicopter conflict over the Hostomel airport. Where's there? Okay, it's not one in the shown on that map. Here it is. The purple strip here. In Hostomel. Right outside of Bucha. This is that Bucha, Hostomel, Irpin territory. That saw the worst of it near Kyiv. Capital city's right here. This is where it saw the worst of it, or some of the worst of it near the capital at least. Plenty of other cities like Kharkiv, Mariupol, the Sumy Oblast, Chernihiv, the Chernihiv Oblast, are plenty of territories that have seen just the worst of the war. Here's an example of the cannon and the turret. The top came off. Right, especially the video. I'm trying to find it. Let me see our Discord. Thank you, Discord. If we could find the Stugna video taking down the Ka-52 helicopter. They're taking down helicopters with the shoulder-fired rockets too now. Well, that I guess isn't it is a shoulder-fired rocket. You use a little computer system, but you still gotta hold it. Anyways, yeah, we'll be back. No, I'm not done yet, but we're back at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday is 9 a.m. and then Saturday is 9 p.m. All right, so I have Friday nights off and Saturday mornings off, and then Sundays off, and that's it. Friday evenings, Saturday mornings, and Sundays. That's it. But there will be a stream Friday morning. There will be a stream Saturday night, etc. So Mercado on the 9s, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, minus 9 p.m. on Friday. Ukraine assorted Russian losses in the Chernihiv region in the last days. 7 Ural supply trucks destroyed. So again, the Chernihiv region to the northeast of Kyiv. Up here, Chernihiv, we're likely going to be getting more and more video and images coming out of the Chernihiv Oblast, because again, or just in general, even more likely going to be coming out in the coming days from Chernobyl as well, due to the expulsion of Russian forces up here. So journalists and photographers are able to get in there and take pictures now. Their turrets pop off because of the auto loading system that they have. It's a good thing in theory, but you know what? After seeing this war, if I was running a tank column, I wouldn't want any auto loading systems in my column, because one shot and it blows up the entire tank, kills the whole crew, and then the tank becomes disabled because the top pops off, because it destroys all of the shells on the auto loader.
Вот они, суки. Пиздец. И квадроцикл он или хуй поймешь, что тут, блядь. Да? Да. Василек? Пиздец. Жесть. Жутко. Вот это таки. Аккуратно открываешь, блядь. Церковь, сука. Щоб тут хоч розтяжок ніяких не було, блядь. Тут вот кацапюры ебаные. Вот они, суки. Пиздец. И квадроцикл он или хуй поймешь, что тут, блядь. Да?
Yeah, all of it's old.
Василек? Пиздец. Жесть. Жутко. Вот это таки. Церковь, сука.
Commander of U.S. and NATO forces in Europe, Todd Walters, said today more U.S. troops will be needed long-term in the EU following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Pentagon will re-examine its global posture review to see whether rotational or permanent troop presence is necessary. You bet your ass they're going to start sending more to the NATO countries. Listen, we're still doing deployments to the Middle East. I forgot what camera I got. We're still doing deployments to the Middle East. There's like Ukrainian military helped the dog from Bucha find its owner. So a dog from the Bucha, city of Bucha, which again, that's the city that the viral images of all the bodies in the street are coming out from the atrocities being committed there. So this dog was in Bucha, and the owner has been reunited according to this post. He's a very happy floof. That's one happy good boy right there. A very happy good boy. All right, let's go to YouTube. We can close this. I suppose, does he have 3 hours ago? Russian citizens are brainwashed for sure. All right, I guess we could go to Speak the Truth next. Shout out to Rob from Speak the Truth. We've been watching his videos since the beginning. And it looks like that's going to be the next one. Oh, no. I got it here. So before we get into Rob, we're going to go... Here's the press conference from the 4th of April from the Russian Federation. And we do the best I can do to cover all sides of the war is just to show what the Russians are saying or what the Russian Ministry of Defense is putting out. So this is the Russian Federation press conference from the 4th of April. There's a couple slips in here where he actually says the word war a few times. So
these are unprecedented times, as you know, and also unprecedented was what has happened yesterday and today. Unprecedented, unbelievable, unthinkable that we were denied a Security Council meeting that we requested today from the British presidency. I remember in my times here, I had emergency meetings of the president of the Security Council on many issues, including on weekends, including on holidays here in the United States, and we never objected to it. This thing that happened, that that is unbelievable and unprecedented in the history of the United Nations. That is the fact. I heard today's press conference by Barbara Woodward, and I heard questions she was asked, and I heard answers that she gave, and I didn't hear some of the answers that she was not able to answer, frankly. So I would like to tell you, before we have a meeting tomorrow, on a few things which are very important to get through to you, through the press, through the media, about what is happening and what has happened in recent days around Kyiv. On April 4th, the Kyiv regime, with an active support from the Western sponsors, started to promote in Western mass media fake news about alleged atrocities of the Russian military forces.
So this press conference came right after the images from Bucha came out. So this wasn't a press conference after this morning. That's why I'm saying it's from the 4th. So if anybody might have missed this press conference, it was referenced to by the Ukrainian delegation during the session today, but I didn't see it all in full. And if you missed it, this is the press conference from the day prior.
In the town of Bucha in Ukraine, which is a suburb of Kyiv, from the very beginning, it has been clear that this is nothing else but yet another staged provocation aimed at discrediting and dehumanizing of the Russian military and leveling political pressure on Russia. And I assure you, I don't know, I'm sure that not many of you know about the Russian military, but Russian military is nothing and has nothing what it is being accused of, in particular in having cruel atrocities against the civil population. It is not the case, it will never be the case, and it was never the case. We have factual evidence that proves this point. We intend to present it to Security Council as soon as possible, so that the international community is not misled by the false narrative promoted by Kyiv and its Western sponsors. To this end, the Russian Federation requests a Security Council meeting to be convened at 3 p.m. New York time on April 5th, today, to discuss this heinous provocation by the Kyiv regime. I would like to emphasize that we did it as early as on 2:51 p.m. on Sunday, full 24 hours before the requested meeting. So the UK claim.
Anybody that watched today find it interesting in the UN meeting that he spoke in Russian? Anyone else find that interesting? How, I mean, he speaks in English when he wants to, and he does his word salad. But today at the United Nations, he spoke in Russian, and we had to listen to that translator.
That we asked for a meeting too late is misinformation. Our efforts have been met with the fierce opposition of the UK presidency, with the support of other Western delegations, namely US, France, Ireland, Norway, and Albania. They tried to invent an invalid and lame pretext not to convene this meeting on Monday, insisting that it should be postponed to Tuesday. The UK ambassador keeps claiming, and you could hear it at her press conference earlier today, as I said, that they wanted to have a more informed meeting with this UN Secretariat as a briefer. This is a lie. We have never objected to having a briefer on Monday, and it is the obligation of the presidency to arrange for that. From our side, we didn't request a briefer. During the Russian presidency, we duly arranged for such meetings at the request of the Western delegations, even in the middle of the day or night, regardless of a very complex geopolitical context and constant provocations vis-à-vis our country. I would like to stress the UK presidency openly rejected our request to convene the meeting on April 4th, and they did it twice. Since the situation around Bucha kept evolving overnight, today we requested an urgent meeting of the Council at 3 p.m. However, the presidency took the liberty to qualify that there is no reason to convene an emergency meeting. As they put it, the UK does not believe that the situation in Bucha is calling for immediate attention of the Security Council. This is a unilateral assertion of the UK presidency, not a decision of the Council members. You can see clearly now what a rule-based order promoted by the UK and other Western countries means in real life. It means them imposing comfortable rules with total disregard of international law and established rules of procedure of the UN Security Council. This behavior is very illustrative and reveals true attitude of the West to the Ukrainian people. While blocking the discussion on Bucha, a clear-cut provocation in classic Goebbels-style risking to have serious implications for international peace and security, the Western delegations rushed to convene a Security Council meeting on the education of girls in Afghanistan some time ago. So you can see where the real priorities are. The reason why the Western delegations do this is very simple. It would not benefit Western cause if the Security Council meeting is convened by Russia, since this would shake anti-Russian narrative they are comfortably promoting. The Western delegations prefer to blend in the situation in Bucha with the discussion of the humanitarian situation at the meeting they convene tomorrow, to shift the focus away from the staged provocation by the Kyiv regime. To this end, the UK, by its own discretion, added our agenda item to tomorrow's briefing. We have never approved that. Yet another illustration of their behavior. I would like to recall Rule 2 of the Provisional Rules of Procedure of the Security Council. It is explicit that the Presidency should call for a meeting at the request of any member of the Security Council. What we see now is a shameful and unprecedented abuse by the UK of the President's prerogatives. At the same time, this is a demonstration of weakness, showing that the Western delegations had to resort to this to this maneuvering to try to shut the Russians' voice. It only proves the point that the Western delegations care neither about the real situation in Bucha nor about the Council authority. Abusive, condescending, colonialistic line of the UK presidency is undermining the very foundation of the UN, and we will yet to assess the implications. The presidency is entrusted by the Charter to lead the Security Council. The UK failed to lead. It is a disgrace for the British diplomacy and an undeniable stain on its reputation. Given negligence of the UK presidency, we decided to convene this press conference to shed light on the Western-backed provocation of the Kyiv regime in Bucha. I would like to present you to the real facts about Bucha. During the time that the town has been under the control of the Russian armed forces, not a single local resident has suffered from any violent action. For as long as the town was under the control of the Russian armed forces.
And again, why? So the propaganda, right? The reason that Russia's propagandizing their reason for being there, or for even doing this special military operation, is the alleged Nazification of Ukraine, or the amount of Nazis in Ukraine. And they're bolstering the far-right military battalion, the Azov battalion, that is fighting down here in Mariupol, as their justification to invade the entire country. And keep in mind that the Nazi party had, I think, like 2% of the vote. Likely you would see a similar percentage in the United States, unfortunately. But Bucha, here's where the Azov is, right? Here's where that far-right battalion is that exists. And here's where Bucha is. Dang, that's wild. Why at all would there be Russian forces occupying cities up here? Oh, that's right, because they were trying to take over Kyiv and then take over the entire country.
locals were moving.
I'm truly convinced that people that fall for this propaganda, they're not going to look at a map. They're not going to look at satellite images. They're not going to look at they're not going to compare and contrast the images to the geolocated reports, and then look and make sure that the place is a real place, which you can do now, and the capabilities.
Freely around the town and using cellular phones, so they could post in the social media any photo and video footage on any theoretical harassment, if this was the case. However, that didn't happen. Let me address the developments in the chronological order. On March 30, following another round of talks in Ankara, Russian Ministry of Defense have announced the withdrawal of forces from a number of regions, including Bucha. That fact was confirmed the next day by the mayor of Bucha. In his video on March 31st, Anatoly Fedoruk presented the withdrawal of Russian forces as a victory of Ukrainian army. Interestingly, he had not mentioned any mass atrocities, dead bodies, killings, graves, or anything like that. It is hard to imagine that a city mayor can forget to address such a devastating scenario. Let me show you the video posted by Mr. Fedoruk. As you will see, he looks happy and smiling. It is hard to imagine that he is acting like this against the backdrop of a massacre in the streets. Перевод есть?
Дорогі друзі, шановна Бучанська громада, 31 березня віде історію нашого населеного пункту всієї територіальної громади як день звільнення від російських орків, від російських окупантів нашими Збройними силами України, наших населених пунктів. Тож сьогодні констатую, що цей день є радісний і велика перемога наших Збройних сил на Київщині. І ми обов'язково
I will not translate it. That's in Ukrainian, but that's what I said. He's
That's happy and smiling. That's happy and smiling. The man has like look at the bags under his eyes. They go down damn near next to his nose. He's got this much space between the bags under his eyes and his nose from how much stress. Like what's smiling here? That's smiling?
Наших Збройних сил на Київщині. І ми обов'язково
I will not translate it. That's in Ukrainian, but that's what I said. He's happy that the Russian troops withdrew, and that's a great victory for the Ukrainian army.
Duh.
And nothing mentioning about any atrocities that happened in the city. This video was posted on the Ukraine 24 channel on the 1st of April, and I would like to stress nothing about atrocities was revealed on April 1st. Let me show a photo of Jean Belenyuk, a deputy of the Ukrainian parliament who, according to his reports in social media, visited Bucha after regaining control by the Ukrainian government. As you can see, he is also smiling. He is joyful. In his reports, he mentions no dead bodies, not a single reference to atrocities. Давайте, Федя. So, on April 2nd, the National Guard of Ukraine posted on official resources a video from Bucha. Let me show you the footage. The video captures members of Ukrainian armed forces entering Bucha. The footage shows no dead bodies in the streets. The Ukrainian military interviewed several people in different locations across the town. None of them said a word about any massacre or mass killings. Camera also captures videos behind these people with no dead bodies inside.
Bruh, this is in near Chernobyl. This is not Bucha. And they didn't kill anybody near Chernobyl because they needed the workers, or otherwise it would have been a nuclear problem. So they didn't massacre anybody up there. Oh my god, dude.
That is in half Russian, half Ukrainian. Все надо. To sum it up,
So they got a file folder and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images in it. With their own narrative over it, the context.
No reports of the atrocities which are accredited to Russian military in Bucha, which happened before Ukrainian army took the control of the city. 4 days after the Russian military left the city of Bucha, there was not a single sign of atrocities. I repeat, not a single reference to it anywhere. The infamous video depicting bodies on the city roads only appeared on April 3rd. It is full of discrepancies and blatant lies. According to its authors, the bodies were lying on the streets for at least 4 days by the time the video was filmed. However, the bodies are not stiffened. How is that possible? It is against the law of biology. The bodies do not have signs of decomposition known to forensic experts.
How long does it take for a body to decompose? So 24 to 72 hours after death, internal organs decompose. 3 to 5 days after death, the body starts to bloat and contaminating foam leaks from the mouth and nose. 8 to 10 days after death, the body turns green to red as the blood decomposes and the organs in the abdomen accumulate gas. How long does it take for a body to decompose without embalming? Two weeks post-mortem is when the teeth and nails fall out. And again, this is without embalming. You got freezing cold weather in Ukraine. Freezing cold.
Including cadaver stains. The wounds contain no blood. Another point illustrating that this video is fake. The Ukrainian forces use either blue or yellow armlets or stripes because members of the Ukrainian militia do not always wear military uniforms. Local civilians in Bucha wore white stripes on their support arms, on their upper arms.
Should we look that up? How long in freezing temperatures? Because that's in like normal temperatures. In freezing. In shaded areas, after 3 to 4 months, they become a skeleton, though not always. He's found that bodies decompose faster in hotter, more humid climes than in colder, drier spots. So, refrigerator temperature, it said flesh can stay in a reasonably cold refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. Yeah, bodies can last for weeks in freezing temperatures. In cold water, okay, it's in water. So freezing temperatures takes longer to decompose.
When the Russian forces were stationed in Bucha. That was done to prevent misidentification of civilians from members of the militia. When Ukrainian forces entered the town, they fired at the people with white stripes, killing the civilians. There is a video showing a conversation between members of Ukrainian units. It was published in social media by the so-called Territorial Defense, a radical nationalist fighting group.
Odessa's next to the coast, though. Odessa's down here. This is in the northern part of the country. Odessa's down here. You're going to have different weather down here.
One of the radicals asks if he can shoot at the people without blue stripes. The other confirms that this is permissible. Russian speakers know that, but let me translate for the rest of you. Question behind the scene. There are folks without blue bands. Can I shoot him? Can I shoot them? Answer, of course. I hope the evidence we demonstrated today leaves you with no illusion that the video circulated by the Kyiv regime is a crude forgery. It doesn't stand any scrutiny. However, some Western leaders, for example, German Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron, and of course British Foreign Minister Liz Truss, have already lined up to promote this false narrative. What happened in Bucha is exactly a false flag attack by the Kyiv regime and its Western sponsors. The possible goal of this provocation is horrifying and brings back the nightmares of the Nazi crimes during the Second World War. Vladimir Zelensky, once he arrived in Bucha, hinted that this incident justifies any uncivilized response. By this, basically, he confirmed that the Kyiv regime considers genocide as a method of warfare. Now the nationalists have a pretext to commit a real massacre of innocent Ukrainian people, executing them as traitors. We want the world to stay alert, and we call on the Council not to let this horrific cleansing to happen. To conclude, I would like to reiterate that the Russian military forces act in strict compliance with international humanitarian law and do not target civilians and civilian objects. If we were pursuing aggressive goals like those of the US-led coalition in Iraq, the scale of losses and devastation would be worse by digits, like in Raqqa and Mosul, that were bombed by the US to ashes, killing thousands of civilians, including women and children, whose bodies were left unburied for weeks and even months.
So you got them deflecting and bringing up Iraq and Mosul. You're bringing up the United States.
I think that you will hear from me more tomorrow because more information is coming, and I think that the truth that what happened in Bucha will reveal itself very soon.
Thank you, Fedor. Thank you, Ambassador, for this press conference. On behalf of ANCA, Valeria Rubecco from ANSA News West Service. So my question is, do you think that what happened with the meeting in the Security Council that didn't happen because Great Britain said no and the UK said no, and the fact that the United States intention to pursue Russia's suspension from the UN Human Rights Council, do you think that these actions can undermine the negotiation effort for a humanitarian ceasefire, and what are the next steps you're planning here at the UN?
Of course they do. Of course, Human Rights Council is not our piece of cake, so to say. We are in another format. But I think that that this is again unbelievable what the West and the rest are trying to do with Russia today, trying to exclude it from whatever multilateral forums we are having in the world. I think yes, I'm saying yes to what you're saying. This is again unprecedented, and this will not facilitate or encourage or be helpful to what is happening between Russian and Ukrainian peace talks.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. On the other side, the Ukrainians have presented footage of people, Ukrainians who've said that their loved ones have been killed by Russian troops, civilians not doing anything. And also their footage, the footage that's been shown. We've seen a little bit that you've shown, but do you consider that the statements of these women and family members who've watched their own loved ones being killed by Russian troops are fake?
Look, this is a warfare, and in warfare anything happens. And you.
So it's war then. It's not a special military operation? I thought it was a special military operation. Now it's warfare? Let's go back again.
Look, this is a warfare, and in warfare anything happens. And you.
I didn't say it, he did. Not my opinion. Straight from Russia. This is warfare. So he's still... So the justification that he's using for civilians being killed is it's warfare. But I thought it was a special military operation.
This is a warfare. And in warfare anything happens. And you can.
What's that? So I thought it was a special military operation.
Family members who've watched their own loved ones being killed by Russian troops are fake?
Look, this is a warfare, and in warfare anything happens, and you cannot exclude that civilians are dying in a war, and that is a sad fact of life. But the footage that we're being presented with,
which is just so wild to think about, because they're talking about Bucha, right? They're talking about Bucha. That's the whole reason this press conference is happening, because the atrocities of Bucha. So he's basically just saying right there, civilians die, it's warfare, right? Because they're in Bucha. But yet Russia's entire existence and propagandized reason for being in this country is due to the Donbass and the annexation of Crimea in 2014, which is down here. So if the special operation and the reasoning was to liberate the people of the Donbass, which is what they're saying, then why in the hell are there Russian troops even anywhere near Kyiv or up and around it? Make that make sense. You can't. You're not going to be able to. It's impossible.
Particularly in Bucha, on which I spoke, does not give us any doubt that that was a stage. That was a stage, and we will present more evidence on that tomorrow when we speak in the Security Council.
And they did not. They didn't, by the way. We're gonna go back. I'm just gonna go to use my stream, and we're gonna look at his response to President Zelensky's address in the UN. He didn't provide any further evidence. This is what people like him do. We have people like him in the United States government that they're always saying, hey, there will be more. We'll have evidence. Evidence will come out. Evidence will come out. They're really just doing that to get the people that are supporting him or supporting whatever they're pushing to do the work for him and make it happen by him speaking out that, hey, there will be evidence provided tomorrow. Okay, well now his little network of minions are going to be working to try to make that thing happen. It's not naturally happening, but his minions and his people or whatever in the media are going to need to make that thing happen now.
I'd like to ask,
Because or at least try to.
ask you one follow-up question. The Ukrainian Prosecutor General Iryna Venediktova today told Ukrainian television that the situation in a town called Borodyanka may be worse than Bucha in terms of people who have been found killed. That town was also occupied by Russian forces until recently. Do you know anything about that?
Frankly, no. I just hear it from you as you speak. Yes, Pamela.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Fedor. Thank you, Ambassador, for the briefing. It's Pamela Falk from CBS. My question is about Bucha. There are pictures, there's eyewitness evidence. What are you saying about how this happened? And you did show us pictures of 2 pregnant women who were fake photos, and we saw one of them give birth and we saw the other one die. Why do you believe that the pictures and the story you're getting right now and telling us are true about Bucha?
I just saw a footage today on the Russian television of the lady that gave birth in Mariupol, and she admitted that that was a fake. She's a Ukrainian blogger named Mariana, I forgot her surname. She admitted that was a fake, that she was made to make that footage. Now, if you look carefully at what you see in Bucha, about the corpses that lie on the streets, that were never existing before the Russian troops arrived, before they left.
What was that? One more time? What was that?
About the corpses that lie on the streets, that were never existing before the Russian troops arrived.
What? They were never existing before the Russian troops arrived. Right. Oh, I fucked that up. Never mind. I gotta refix. I messed that up. Freudian slip. Or maybe it was just like his brain. Some people, when they're blatantly lying, the truth slips out. It happens. I've seen it.
Corpses that lie on the streets, that were never existing before the Russian troops arrived.
Oh, left. After they left. Yeah, right. That's two now.
Before they left, and suddenly they appear on the streets, lying on the road, one by one, right and left. Some of them are moving. Some of them are showing the signs of life. You cannot escape from an understanding that is a stage. That is a stage, that is a fake, that this is a provocation, because as I said, and you know it perfectly well, that besides the warfare, we have an information war. And the information war...
Besides the warfare, we have an information war. So this is the same person that was, when he was the president of the UN Security Council the day the war kicked off. Because if anybody doesn't remember, when the war started... Russia was the president of the UN Security Council at the time. They were the president. And so he blatantly refused or would not say that they're at war. And then they banned that word in Russia.
He's raging. And we have evidence that that was premeditated. That was arranged by the Ukrainian information warfare machine, so to say.
And Therefore, you're blaming the Ukrainians for actually putting these bodies there?
One thing you cannot deny is that Ukrainians are using people as a human shield when they hide behind them in buildings, in what do you call it? In residential buildings, which they use to call fire on themselves.
The second woman who was pregnant, by the way, did die.
What?
The second woman in that photo died, and the baby died. So,
if that is the case, I'm sorry for her. I really am. You may believe me.
But part of the question is then the bigger picture. Martin Griffiths just came from Moscow. Is there no resolution to the? Is there any possibility of a ceasefire?
And the question is, from which hands she died, by the way, because they claimed that it was the Russian airstrike, while the evidence shows that the building doesn't show the evidence of the airstrike, that was an explosion. But in any case, on Martin Griffiths, on the resolution, we offered a resolution last week, which they rejected. They said no, because Russia as an aggressor cannot offer anything. We are trying to get people out of cities.
So I know it's tough. It's tough listening to it, and this is what I need. This is what I need you guys to do while listening to this. You're not listening to it to be convinced of anything. All right, or you're not listening to it. You're not listening to his words to try to find something that you can latch onto, or like you're looking for a truth in here. There is no truth in here. So you got to listen to it for a different reason. Okay, so this is like critical listening / literacy. But what is he saying, for who and why, and where is the message being received? Who is repeating this message? What type of people are repeating this message? What dichotomy is repeating it? That's why we have to listen. All right. It's not that we're trying to be convinced of anything he's saying, or we're waiting for the one thing to agree with him on. We're waiting for that. No, it's to figure out what the message is, what they're saying, what the narrative is, and then in the coming days, you will see it be disseminated among media figures, and you need to figure out who they are and what their ideology is.
Them with free evacuation, which they also deny. They say no, Ukrainians can only leave to the West. They cannot leave to Russia. They have no right to do so, despite the fact that 500,000 Ukrainians are already in Russia. And believe me, there is no xenophobia to Ukrainians in Russia, and it has never been, despite what is happening with Russians around the world today. Perhaps last year, but let's be frank, and I'm grateful to the Americans that they are not up to that. But what is happening in Europe, how they treat Russians only because they have Russian passports, that is incredible. That is unbelievable. I leave aside the issue of sanctions, which are beyond any understanding, but the way they are treating the people in Europe, the Russians, is something that goes beyond any understanding.
Well, since you brought it up, why?
Yeah, like what?
Shervin, please. Thank you, Ambassador, for doing this. Just two questions. Would Russia, for example, welcome an independent investigation? You talk about the misinformation wars, the fog of war. It's difficult to understand who's giving you facts and who's not, right? So would you agree to an independent mechanism to investigate the atrocities that we both can agree are happening in Ukraine? And then a second part, sir. What is so egregious about the 24-hour delay? To help us understand, this meeting that you requested for today is happening tomorrow. So what is so outrageous about this delay?
Look, the question is who is doing the so-called independent investigation. We've seen lots of independent investigations which were not independent at all, because they are politically motivated, biased etc., etc., etc. What about the meeting? That is absolutely clear. What the aim and the idea is about it is not to let us to present our views and to go ahead with their own interpretation of the situation. But I'm afraid for them that by tomorrow many things will come to surface which they wouldn't like to hear. So perhaps they lost time not to having meetings today and postponing it till tomorrow. Thirdly, look, I do not recall, not just in my memory here, but in the procedure and tradition and rules of the Security Council, that the presidency would deny a country a meeting whenever it wants to, because the council should meet if that's an emergency meeting in 3 hours after the announcement. And I've been in these situations myself many times over. I heard your question today that you asked Barbara. I listened to the interview, which she never answered. She never answered. I mean, we've been accused of atrocities. We've been accused. We are being accused of not observing the rules of war, etc. You asked about Raqqa and Mosul. What did she answer? She just evaded. She went.
Deflected. So they didn't. So their tactic, right, is when asked. He even says it. They were asked directly about their dealings in Ukraine, and then he didn't even answer. He didn't even answer that, and then deflected to her, or deflected back. Well, what about the whataboutisms? Well, what about United States in Iraq? What about in Mosul? What about the United States? What about? That's bad too.
Observing the rules of war, etc. You asked about
to distract and to dissuade and to get people off the main point. It's always about getting people off the main point, and it usually happens quickly.
What did she answer?
Get the focus away from the main point and get it focused elsewhere. Shift the conversation, because then you're gonna have people talking about the history of the United States actions and how people in the United States have no room to talk about this war, and like it's just going to be sidetracked nonsense that gets you away from the main point and arguing and talking about things that aren't relevant. They matter. They matter in their own conversations, and certainly the United States actions in Iraq could be talked about in a separate forum. But when you're being addressed directly about your own actions, and then you deflect and talk about actions that are non-relation to the current happenings, not good.
She just evaded.
Straight lies.
She went sideways. Anyway, let's see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow you will hear more from us. I promise that I'll be more factual, even more factual than today. Thank you very much.
I'll be even more factual than today. What does that mean? I'll be even more factual than today? How is that possible? All right, let's go to, before we go to Speak the Truth, let's go and see his response and see what these facts were today. Watch this on Mercado Media at 9 a.m. this morning. There we go. Oops, ignore my voice if I talk over this. I hate listening to my voice. All right. Now, this was the more, quote, more factual, increased facts. He upgraded his factual power level apparently overnight. So this was the response from the Russian Federation after Zelensky spoke, Albania spoke, the United States spoke, and Gabon. I'm sure I'm not even saying that country right. I apologize. If you want to rewatch this, it's posted on YouTube. I'm not going to replay the whole thing. I just want to show Russia's responses.
Federation.
Here we go.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to first of all express our gratitude to the delegation of the United Arab Emirates for their presidency in the month of March. We're also grateful to the Secretary General, to Rosemary DiCarlo and Martin Griffith for their briefings. We also listened to the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. We'd like to thank Martin for his visit to Moscow, during which, as far as we can judge, he had some useful meetings and discussions. Better than anyone else, he should know the efforts that Russia is undertaking every single day to organize humanitarian corridors. However, the arrangements reached with the help of international mediators is consistently not being implemented by the Ukrainian side. I'm not going to overload you with figures.
I'm not going to overload you with figures. So this is the first speech he has had since the press conference that you all just watched, right? So this was this morning. The press conference you watched was from the night prior. So he said he was going to provide more facts. And then the first opportunity, he's not going to provide the figures. I'm not going to waste your time with the figures and the numbers. Like, people talk like this all the time, and they're just bullshit artists.
Such communiques are published every single day by our Ministry of Defense.
He's using an interpreter, and again, here, opinion time. I feel that he's speaking in Russian because it's going to be played all over Russian media. I'm sure this was played all over Russian media because people like this, people with this ideology, live off of sound bites. They need this sound clip. They need this sound bite to be played all over Russian media, and speaking in Russian is far more effective than him speaking in English to the Russian people. That's why he's speaking. That's why he's speaking in Russian, in my opinion, for this.
I'd like to say that just out of Mariupol toward the east, without any participation by the Ukrainian side, we have managed to save 123,500 people.
Save.
Now, overall, since the beginning of the special military operation.
So now he calls it a special military operation, which the night prior he called it a war.
Over 600...
So he's speaking in Russian, calls it a special military operation.
1,000 people have been evacuated to Russia, including over 119,000 children. And we're not talking about any kind of coercion or abduction, as our Western partners like to present this, but rather the voluntary decision by these people is testified by many videos that are accessible in social media. Madam President, another topic of the meeting was declared today, which is practically not being discussed today, so I'm going to leave that out. I simply would like to take advantage of the virtual presence here of the President of Ukraine and would like to address him directly.
So he addresses the president directly. He hasn't addressed any of the further facts or whatever of Bucha that he has allegedly.
Now we place on your conscience the
This is the Russian Federation right here. You can see the nameplate. Yes. So we watched a press conference from them the night prior, and now this was after Zelensky's speech, after the United States, after Albania and Gabon, and then the Russian Federation got to speak, and then I'll play the Ukrainian response as well.
Grounded accusations against the Russian military, which are not confirmed by any eyewitnesses, and we spoke about this in detail yesterday at our press conference. Vladimir Alexandrovich, we all remember when in 2019 you were elected as the president of Ukraine. Now there were a lot of hopes tied to your election because you were, as a candidate, pledged peace and an end to the war in Donbass, including the Russian-speaking population, which you pledged to protect. So it seemed that we were on the verge of correcting the historical injustice when, as a result of the Maidan coup in 2014, Ukraine began to be transformed into a hateful anti-Russia, and that seemed to be on the verge of being turned, that page of being turned. However, those hopes failed to be to materialize, and now you scornfully call the residents of Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic as a subspecies, repeating what your predecessor stated, who in fact threatened that the residents of the Donetsk and Lugansk will rot in their basements. And you are calling on them to return, to leave and to Russia. And now you've declared war against your native Russian language by introducing, in essence, a linguistic inquisition in a country where Russian is the native language for a minimum of 40% of the population. And today, explosions and artillery rounds are exploding over the entire territory of Ukraine, and not only in the east, where they haven't ceased for the past 8 years. And they're exploding precisely because there was no other way of bringing peace to the Donbass, unfortunately, after you and your subordinates categorically refused to comply with the Minsk agreements, at the same time by preparing already back in March to solve the problem of the Donbass by military means. In the course of our special operations, we have found many secret orders testifying to this. We are told that there can be no Nazis in Ukraine. However, we know very well that not only are they there, but unfortunately they are running the show. And how can it be any other way when the national heroes of Ukraine are Nazi collaborators Bandera and Shuhevich, who are responsible not only for the Holocaust, but the killing of hundreds of thousands of peaceful Poles, Russians, Ukrainians, and Jews? You simply preferred not to notice Ukrainian Nazis, pretending that they're simply not there. But unfortunately, they are there. And they are very many of them, and among them a lot of young people. How do we know that? Well, they're not concealing it. They have tattoos made, Nazi tattoos. They decorate their clothing with swastikas and other Nazi symbols. They give Nazi greetings, and they're open about it in the social media. There are particularly many of them in the national battalions such as Aidar, the Right Sector, and the Azov Battalion. And that would be one thing, but they're also acting like Nazis, and they're killing like them. And they're not just killing Russian or prisoner soldiers, on which they torture and gloat about it on the social media, but they kill their own. Your neo-Nazis and radicals have shown unrivaled cruelty against the civilians, which they use as human shields, and position heavy artillery next to residential buildings and multiple rocket launchers as well. Today we've heard once again a huge amount of lies about Russian soldiers and military. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of video testimonials of people who are ready to provide testimony about the cruelty of Ukrainian nationals. I'll just read some of them here.
Right, pay attention to the testimony, because it's going to come up in the Ukraine response.
These are cruel histories, but you need to hear them. Natalia Kudinova says, the mayor of the town was one of the first to run away. Afterwards, the Ukrainian authorities lied that Russia was not letting people through humanitarian corridors. The National Battalion Azov, under threat of death, kept women and children in basements, and it robbed civilians at checkpoints. A grandmother said that the Azov Battalion did not allow her to leave basements. Anyone trying to leave was shot at the Azov checkpoint. Women and girls were stripped naked and had their jewelry and money taken away.
You know what this reminds me of? And if I'm off, go ahead and I guess we'll go take it off that opinion time. This reminds me of the narrative for the border in the United States, for like the Mexican gangs, the calling out the worst of the worst as justification to do or to be bigoted and horrible. Well, in this case, to launch an entire full-scale invasion on a country with plans of reuniting the USSR as a backdrop to it. But
including
it's really the forefront.
Valentina Nikolaevna Borisenko says how Ukrainian soldiers kicked out women with 2 children from a private home and then used it to lob mortar rounds. And that woman had 2 children. They were kicked out by soldiers with blue armbands. Those are Ukrainian insignias, insignias of the Ukrainian army. Marina Vasilyevna testified that she was tortured in a basement by Ukrainian security services. They tied me to a sewer pipe when I found out I was Russian. They beat me, used electric current, raped me, and they threatened to rape my young daughter. Shapovalova Olga Georgievna. We left Mariupol from Bucha on the 25th of March. Firing positions of the Ukrainian army were positioned between residential homes and in the courtyard of a school. They used civilians as cover. In the neighborhood around the drama theater, a Ukrainian tank drove around, firing indiscriminately, including targeting residential buildings. On the territory of the 69th, 68th, and the 5th school, tanks were stationed. I saw this with my own eyes. Madam Suportkina Olga Sergeyevna, this is her testimony. In school number 15 of Mariupol, starting from 25th of February, the Ukrainian armed forces took up positions and left on the 7th of March. They directed fire from there. Our building was badly damaged from the shelling. On the 8th and 9th of March, there was intense shelling, intentionally targeting residential homes. Ukrainian soldiers were asked why they're doing it. They replied that until they destroy the entire Russian spirit in whole, they will remain there. They started looting immediately. They plundered all the shops. And it was the forces of the Donetsk People's Republic that helped evacuate us and drove us to Mangusha. There are many other heartrending stories. There are Russians and Ukrainians tortured to death with swastikas burned into their chests. There are looters and criminals who you distributed weapons to. There are civilians and foreigners who are held hostages. And in spite of all factual evidence and common sense, you're trying to lay the blame for their death on the Russian military. This is absolutely unacceptable. The fact that even consider that Russian military would be capable of this. And now we're seeing blatant criminally staged events with the Ukrainian civilians who are killed by their own radicals in the back.
So far, all of this evidence is just a whole bunch of you'll see, you see. Like, it's all evidence coming out of his ass. He's pulling it out of his ass on that piece of paper and reading it off. He's coming up with shit on the fly. He's doing what I do basically here at the live stream. I don't have a script. I don't have anybody telling me what I need to cover, when I need to cover it. Majority of the time I'm sitting here like off the cuff. Actually, 99% of the time I'm off the cuff here. I don't have a plan into the stream. It's very much react news. So he's pulling all of these facts out of his rear. There's no empirical data, statistical data, no nothing. Just his words.
Past traditions of
and a whole bunch of you'll see that's, or they says. You'll see that's and they says. Who's
Goebbels to accuse the Russian army. Those killed in the areas from which the Russian forces withdrew after encouraging peace negotiations in Istanbul. So now it turns out that we shouldn't have withdrawn. I'm talking about Bucha first and foremost. I understand that you saw corpses and heard testimonials, but you only saw what they showed you. You couldn't ignore the flagrant inconsistencies in the version of events which are being promoted by Ukrainian and Western media. The fact that the corpses were not there right after the withdrawal of the Russian forces, which is confirmed by several videos, and the fact that there are recordings where Ukrainian radicals urged shooting at those with white armbands, in other words, against civilians. If you saw the video very carefully that was shown today, you'll see that those people who are on the ground have white armbands. These are civilians. And the fact that the corpses on the video in no way resemble those that could have been lying on the street for 3 or 4 days. And based on the sensational and completely scientifically absurd information of the New York Times, they were there since the 20th of March. So the only ones who could fall for this fake are absolute dilettantes or our Western partners who don't want to hear anything and have been calling black, white, and vice versa for a long time now. Unfortunately, these countries don't give a hoot about Ukraine itself. It's simply a pawn in the geopolitical game against Russia, which they will sacrifice
his
easily.
speech
But in the
sounds-
meantime, they will try to prolong the conflict by
This morning, Andrew, upset.
delivering as much
Frustrated morning, Andrew, listening to this live. Again, this is a replay, but we were listening to this live this morning, so.
weapons as possible and ammunition. But the most important
Streams at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. from here on out. I used to do 2-a-days when the war started, and now I'm able to do them again.
thing is that how have we sunk to such depths of cruelty that nationalists are displaying? For example, those from the Azov battalion.
Anxiety
and you,
yawns.
I'm addressing the Ukrainian president. In your interview with the Americans media, you coyly, bashfully state that they are what they are. I really hope that you will reflect on this and hope that you will find a solution to the situation, because it depends only on you. Because we came to you, to Ukraine, not to conquer lands. We came to bring the long-awaited peace to the blood-soaked land of Donbass. Not a truce, but a true, lasting peace. And for this, we need to root out the cruelty, which I mentioned. We need to cut out the malignant Nazi tumor that is consuming Ukraine and would in time begin to consume Russia. And we will achieve that goal. I hope sooner rather than later, because there is no other outcome. We are not shooting against civilian targets in order to save as many civilians as possible. This is precisely why we're not advancing as fast as many expected. We're not acting like Americans and their allies in Iraq and Syria. We're razing entire cities to the ground. They had no pity for them, but we felt great pity because these are people who are close to us. But radicals have nothing to lose. They couldn't care less about civilians. They're ready to take to the grave with them the entire population of the Ukraine, as was clearly demonstrated by the provocation in Bucha. Don't allow the West to achieve its goals, Vladimir Alexandrovich. Make the right decisions that are needed for your country, because the West is ready to fight in the Ukraine until the last Ukrainian. Make that decision now, because the real situation on the front. Later, it might be too late soon. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation
What a
for his
joke.
statement, and I now.
All right, and then now let's fast forward to the Ukraine's response. I think Russia chimes in one more time. China's representative just said a whole bunch of word salad. UAE. Yeah, he does speak one more time.
Laid bare. We've all seen the horrific images from the towns of Bucha and Irpin of civilians deliberately killed in areas from which Russian forces have recently withdrawn. And the video we saw earlier underlined that horror. These acts and other credible incidents must be investigated as war crimes, and the UK fully supports the work of the International Criminal Court and the work of the Ukrainian Prosecutor General and other national prosecutors. Colleagues, as we and so many others have said so many times, all of this could be stopped if the Russian Federation ended this war now. I resume my function as President of the Council. The representative of the Russian Federation has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Thank you, Madam President. I know that this does not bring us closer to the end of today's meeting, but since today's topic is extremely important, I think it's
Thought we were done with him.
essential to to say a few words about what was the reason for this meeting, which we didn't have a chance to say yesterday because we were not given a chance to have a separate meeting of the Security Council on this topic. And unfortunately, yesterday's meeting, in any way possible, our Western colleagues tried to kind of sweep it under the carpet, and we have seen an example of how of the new new rules-based order.
A new rules-based order. They're really trying to push that as their rallying cry, and it's playing to a lot of an American media, and it's where it comes from, trying to suggest that the actions taken against Russia for their own actions are a part of like some new world order that they've been pushing for decades and decades and decades, as if NATO is like the new world order.
And unfortunately, yesterday's meeting, in any way possible, our Western colleagues tried to kind of sweep it under the carpet, and we have seen an example of how of the new new rules-based order. I would like to once again focus on the events in Bucha, which became the premise for conducting today's meeting, and has led to some far-reaching conclusions that many of you have already made. All units of the Russian armed forces fully withdrew from Bucha as a gesture of good faith on the 30th of March. The very next day, after a round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey, in the presence of negotiators. Now, a report about this was published that very same day on an official website of the Russian Defense Ministry. During the time that the town was under the control of the Russian armed forces, not a single civilian suffered from any kind of violence.
That's a much different tune than the press conference that he said yesterday, or the press conference before that we listened to, when he said that civilians dying is just a part of war. Right? He said civilians dying are just a part of war, and here he's saying that there isn't any evidence of civilians dying under the Russian-occupied territory. Or then he doesn't even say Russian-occupied. How does he say it?
Next day, after a round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey, in the presence of negotiators. Now, a report about this was published that very same day. I was given a chance to have a separate. All units of the Russian armed forces fully withdrew from Bucha as a gesture of good faith on the 30th of March. The very next day, after a round of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey, in the presence of negotiators. Now, a report about this was published that very same day on an official website of the Russian Defense Ministry. During the time that the town was under the control of the Russian armed forces, not a single civilian suffered from any kind of violence.
So much different than what he said yesterday in English. The day prior in English.
People were able to move around freely around the town and use their cell phones.
No way.
Furthermore, the towns of the Kyiv Oblast was the Russian army supplied 450 tons of humanitarian assistance to those cities. This was confirmed. Now, the towns, the Russian army did not prevent people from leaving the towns. All inhabitants could freely leave the towns toward the north. At the same time, the southern areas of Bucha, including residential areas, were shelled round the clock by Ukrainian forces from using heavy caliber weapons, tanks, and mortars. Already after the withdrawal of the Russian forces, the mayor of Bucha, Anatoly Fedoruk, in his video statement on the 31st of March, presented this as a heroic liberation of the city by the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, let's set aside its so-called liberation, and let's focus on the fact that he confirmed the fact on the 31st of March that there
Where's
were
Will
no
Smith when you
more
need
Russian
him?
soldiers
Hey,
in
where's Will Smith? Oh dear, Smith.
on the 31st of March. The mayor did not
I was tired of listening to him this morning. I made a Will Smith joke.
mention any local inhabitants with their hands tied on 2nd of April. On that video, there are no bodies of civilians on the streets. Furthermore, on that video, the National Guard of Ukraine also interviews local residents who didn't mention any corpses or mass shootings. On one of the Ukrainian news sites, there was also a warning posted on the upcoming mop-up of Bucha on the 2nd of April from a mop-up of Russian collaborators. Now that's been deleted, but users were able to save that video. Now, testimony, so-called testimony of crimes, or evidence of crimes by the Russian armed forces in Bucha appeared only on the 3rd of April, on the 4th day after the Russian forces left the town. Once again, without any evidence based on the presumption of guilt, the Russian army is being accused of some kind of evil deeds. Of course, we could not notice how these Ukrainian videos were taken up by Western media and human rights organizations who claim to be impartial, and the clear inconsistency between the Ukrainian version and the actual facts is clear. If the court,
What facts are you providing contrary, sir? You're not even providing anything contrary to what is being said. You're just saying that, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Like the press conference prior, we're going to provide more facts or better facts. What do you guys? We're going to provide better facts, you said. And then in the UN Council. What in the what evidence, bro? Alternative facts?
Of civilians had
alternative evidence
been out in the open several days. They would have had several signs that were well known to forensic specialists.
Literally.
And our Western colleagues don't seem to be bothered by that.
They're on the satellite image.
The New York Times would go further by stating that the corpses were there on the street since the 20th of March. Can you imagine what kind of state they would have been in?
Oh my God.
Furthermore,
that's all he says though. He just says, "Can you imagine what kind of state you would have?" He doesn't provide the facts that they're in freezing cold temperatures and that those bodies out there are being preserved a lot longer in the state they were in because of the freezing cold temperatures. He just like, you take his word for it. Which in Russia, that's all you have to do. You're forced to.
Of the bodies
It's wild. You got Russia talking about Western media, and then the people that propagate their speech as if mainstream news. Well, they only have their mainstream news is state controlled media. They only have one news. They got rid of all dissenting media, anybody challenging anything. Only state media. There's VPNs, and people that are in Russia are able to access Western media through VPNs, thank goodness. But it's so wild to me that the people that, they force their media into one street. You only have one option unless you have a VPN.
The videos circulated by the Ukraine had white armbands on. These are armbands that were worn by civilians after the entry of the Russian armed forces into the town. And one of the videos posted by Ukrainian radicals, you could hear a call to shoot anyone who doesn't have blue arm bands on. That video during the mop-up of Bucha was posted by a member of the territorial defense battalion to whom the Ukrainian authorities handed out weapons. Furthermore, the member of the city council of Bucha, who I mentioned, Yekaterina Ukraintseva, stated on the website Medusa that she did not see the Russian forces.
Notice how he said that there wasn't any bodies, and now he's describing the bodies.
Confirms that
He's double speaking. Like
armed forces that are most of the violations. Of course, these are details that have not been mentioned in the presentations of our Western and Ukrainian colleagues. However, Ukrainian President Zelensky is already claiming that all these staged events in Bucha have give the Ukrainians the right for an uncivilized response. Well,
listen, you don't have to speak straight. He's taking up time, and he's hitting talking points to be replayed later on media. You can say whatever. Unfortunately, when you're this type of a person, or when you're speaking like this, you just say whatever you want as long as you hit the main points here and there. You just got to hit a main talking point in your word salad. As long as you do that, you can say whatever you want, really.
We can just imagine what that is, based on how Ukrainian radicals behaved in the east of Ukraine.
What is it? Hold on, really quick. What is it? It reminds me of a clip from Family Guy. "9/11. What is this? Here, reminds me of this. Here's a little funny clip.
Welcome, Quahog, to the town hall mayoral debate between incumbent Adam West and challenger Lois Griffin. We will now open up the floor to questions from a community at large.
Yes, Mrs. Griffin, how do you feel about those computer websites that put a blue square on the home of a sex offender?
Well, the safety of our children is a very important part of my plan for Quahog. I have a 12-point program for the security.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
No, I'm not impressed. Not yet.
Mayor West, if re-elected, would you increase the frequency of garbage pickup?
Well, citizen, that's an excellent question, and I thank you for it. I think it's great we live in a town where you can ask questions, because without questions, we just have answers. And an answer without a question is a statement.
Oh, I like him. He looks me in the eye.
See what I mean? I'm playing this for comedic purposes, but it's true. It's fun. It's reality too.
I'd like to have a beer with him. I'm voting for him.
I don't understand these people. He didn't even say anything and they're eating it up.
Lois, undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Sir, your question, please.
Mrs. Griffin, what do you plan to do about crime in our city?
A lot. Because that's what Jesus wants. 9/11 was bad.
I agree with that.
Oh, I can't believe how easy this is.
See? It's super easy. Everyone wants to say this ideology is an NPC, this ideology is an NPC. All y'all are fucking NPCs. Everybody is. Nobody has, not many people out here have the ability to like understand nuance and want to listen to a 12-point plan. They're like this. They're exactly like this skit in Family Guy.
Mrs. Griffin, what are your plans for cleaning up our environment?
9/11.
Mrs. Griffin, what about our traffic problem?
9/11. So that popped into my head while we were going here, and that's funny, but unfortunately, that's a reality. Now let's just get back into unfortunately the real world. But it seems comedy and that cartoon is speaking some truth on real life, because that's really all you got to do to hit the main points that your base is going to agree with, and you can say whatever you want. Really, it doesn't even have to make sense.
Many testimonials of their crimes are shocking. Unfortunately, Ukrainian experts on disinformation and staging do not intend to stop there. As the Ministry of Defense has claimed, based on confirmed information in the evening of the 4th of April in the town of Moshun, 23 kilometers to the northwest of Kiev. Troops from the 72nd Ukrainian Main Center of Psychological Operations conducted another staged video of so-called killing by Russian troops of civilians for future circulation
video we
by
watched.
Western media. These of activities have been carried out by in Suma and other.
Moschun is the city with the pine tree, the little tree with the white picket fence in the middle.
Western colleagues.
That little. So he was saying. He was saying that was staged. That city, the Moschun city that we looked at ourselves. We watched a video of Ukrainian forces just walking through it after a reporter drove through it after it was destroyed. So I don't even really go through Ukrainian government sources at all. Try to find journalists that are there because there's plenty of journalists on the ground. Plenty of journalists on the ground. You don't need to go through government sources really. I don't even really pull up the Kyiv independence numbers anymore just because I know. I mean, they're going to inflate the numbers. Russia's going to deflate the numbers. So, but we did that ourselves. Here's the Moschun right here. And he said that it was completely staged. We watched, this is the city we went in here. The city with the pine tree in the middle of it. With the white fence. It's up here. This is what it looked like before the war. Driving through it. You remember this one? Yeah, this is Moschun. This is what he's talking about. Did I pass it already? I miss it sometimes. Oh no, it's up here. Oh, maybe not. Help. It's just one road to get through the whole town, so I might have started a little too. I think I might have missed it. It had the heart in the middle of it. Yep, I'm gonna find it. We're gonna get to it. I might have went past it though. I might have to go back some. No, we're gonna have to go back. Like the video if you guys haven't. Comment where you're tuning in from, what city, what state, where in the world. We're in about the last 10 minutes of coverage here for the night. And then I'll be back again at 9 a.m. or in the morning. Spam those reactions. Make sure you like the video. We're at 593 likes out of 1,000. There's 1,000 people tuned in. Everybody hits the like button. That's 1,000 likes right there. We're catching up to it. It's up here. It's right up here. Here it is. Here we go. That's the pine tree. There's the heart. The Soviet bus stop. Just the cell tower. This is Moschun. I wonder if here's the video of the Ukrainian forces on the 22nd of March walking back through it.
Доброго вечора, ми з України.
There's the pine tree, so you can see, I mean, before and after, they're walking to clear it out. That's the pine tree, right? Soviet bus stop right there and everything.
Доброго вечора, ми з України.
Looks like it's been painted. There's the tower, there's the cell tower. Right here. That's exactly here. So, whatever he's talking about. We independently looked at that. So we're going to be seeing more images similar to Bucha from other cities that Russians
to exclude Russia from the Human Rights Council. This is stated by the representative of a country who 3 years ago criticized the council in the strongest, harshest terms, that it had the audacity of condemning the actions of American soldiers in Afghanistan. And as is well known, the United States left the council. So I hope that our colleagues from the United Nations will not allow themselves to be manipulated and play up to Washington and its very dangerous games. Thank you very much.
Man, yuck. All right, now the response from Ukraine.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement. The representative of Ukraine has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Well, thank you, Madam President. Before I switch to English, I would say a couple of lines rather.
I know there's a lot of trolls on YouTube. Just go ahead, spam the blue and yellow hearts. Show the solidarity you guys have for the people of Ukraine in the chat. Show that there's more support for that than there are trolls.
Мы уже привыкли.
We have become accustomed to the lies that are constantly being spewed in the chamber of the Security Council. Comrade Nebenzia decided to quote from an interview from a media outlet called Medusa. I'd like to ask Comrade Nebenzia, excuse me, why he doesn't quote the interview in full. Let me quote that interview, who the representative of Putin wanted to use for his purposes.
For his media. It's all for the media.
I'm quoting. These are the words of the woman who he mentioned, and I'm quoting. Sometimes Russian soldiers gave dry rations to the basement, and then after lowering these rations, they tossed grenades into the basement. You wanted to quote that interview. Why didn't you quote the whole interview?
Damn. Damn. Got him.
This is about your humanitarian assistance, after you provide that humanitarian assistance, you toss grenades. That's an interview from the same woman who you mentioned.
I would like to make my further statement in response to the hypocritical questions by Putin's representative. After the video we saw with the shocking images from Bucha, Irpin,
that video almost made me puke, dude.
And other sites.
That video is not good.
He should ask these very questions to himself. How have Russians got to the cruelty?
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Marie, for that. Thank you, Cleve, for the big super chat. And thank you, Believa Mayhew. Thank you to everybody that's been sending the super chats on YouTube and the stars on Facebook. Thank you.
Of Nazis. When have you started enjoying acting like Nazis? Killing civilians, attempting to redraw internationally recognized borders, setting the task to finally resolve the Ukrainian issue, like Hitler attempted to resolve the Jewish issue. When did you miss the point of Russia's turning into the Nazi-style cancerous tumor? Unable and unwilling to stop expanding and bringing to neighboring nations sufferings, destruction, pain, and death. I'm appalled over your cynical an outright lie that you don't hit civilian targets, and that is why you're moving so slowly. You hit the civilian targets and you kill the civilians. Shall I quote your own words of yesterday in the press conference that you gave here in the headquarters, where you said that civilians are killed by your army? Or shall I not? Shall I play the video? You said this is war. Civilians are killed in the war.
He's talking about the press conference that we watched prior to this segment when he was being asked that question. You guys heard it.
It's a warfare, you said. Or perhaps in your mindset, a children's hospital in Mykolaiv, destroyed by the Russian strike yesterday, was a military target. And perhaps a child killed as a result of the strike was a Ukrainian nationalist. The only truth you've said is that you are not moving as planned. And the only reason is the resistance of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people, not your smart military planning. The Ukrainian people who realize quite clear what the Russian world in reality means. And we thank the international community for the solidarity with Ukraine. Ukraine will win in its territory, and the entire world will win, despite the threats that a criminal and a liar throws in the face just in the Security Council chamber. Finally, if there is anything that we have to thank the Russian representative for, it is his acknowledgement at yesterday's press conference that Russia is waging war against Ukraine. War, you said several times, not the special operation.
Got him.
And I consider this confession shall impact the UN assessment of what is going on in the center of Europe.
Thank you, Pam.
Perhaps it was the unique moment when we should believe what a fully accredited representative says in the United Nations. Hence, once again, a reminder to Putin's diplomats. Ribbentrop denied any knowledge of concentration camps, racial extermination policies, yet was found guilty at Nuremberg war crime trial. And we all know what happened to him on the 16th of October 1946. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ukraine for his statement.
All right. That's from the president or the representative from Ukraine. Okay, y'all. We'll have to tune in to Speak the Truth in the morning, or I'm going to leave you guys on a let's hold on. Let's check and see if there's anything breaking before I call it a night here. Give me 1 second. Let's refresh our feed and just double check real fast. A Russian missile attack tonight hit an oil depot in, where is that? In Novomodovsk. Hold on. Rescuers are putting out the fire. Another rocket hit a plant in the, where is that? The head of Dnipro. So this is some right now news. We're doing recap of the UN Security Council. It's in Russia? It's in Russia. A Russian missile attack tonight hit an oil depot. It can't be. Or maybe there's a Ukraine version of that? Yeah, that makes more sense. Is it by Dnipro? North of Kryvyi Rih. So there's a version of it in the same city name in Ukraine. That makes more sense. Here's Dnipro. That's a little better. Yeah, I'll check John too as well. I'll check John, an update from John before I go. So here's where that is. And then this is the Kharkiv region right now. Gotta realize it's what is it, 8:30 in the morning? 8:30 in the morning in Ukraine? Lots of Z vehicles. Looks like garbage. So that thing, look at that. And then I'm going to leave you guys with this for the night. I'm going to leave you guys with some positive or something positive before we go. All right. So this is from Andrew Kimmel reporting. Let's see this thread. So, and we went over this morning. Earlier this week, we received a request from a woman in Pennsylvania that her 97-year-old mother, again, 97-year-old mother, was stuck in a nursing home in Kyiv. Through our network of individual volunteers, driver transporting people from Kharkiv agreed to get her and pass her over to me at the Polish border.
Morning, everyone. It is very early, but I'm about to start a 3-hour journey to the border where I'll be picking up a 97-year-old Ukrainian woman and driving her to Warsaw. It's going to be a long day.
All right. So here's more. Transporting a 97-year-old out of a war zone in a van. That was an incredibly difficult task. The only way they could get her in comfortably was to lay her down. She was unable to move for the entirety of the 10-hour trip in which they drove through the night. 28 hours from Kharkiv. It took a team of people to get her out of the van as she was in pain and was incredibly nervous as to everything going on. We had a medical team and give her a checkup, and after a bowl of soup and tea, Nanel, who was born in 1925, became much more relaxed and comfortable. The original plan was to get Nanel from a nursing home, was to get Nanel to a nursing home in Warsaw, but the idea of putting her in my car for another 5-hour journey would be too much. The medical team at the Korskowa border was able to find a bed at a nursing home an hour and 45 minutes away, so off we went. 97-year-old Nanel. We were greeted by these amazing women at the nursing home who immediately put Nanel at ease. One of the women cried upon hearing how old she was and the journey she had to take to get there. Nanel's daughter is booking the earliest flight to Poland to finally reunite with her mom. Kimmel, I don't speak a word of Russian, but hearing her laugh was enough to understand she was comfortable. I was told she was talking about her daughter here.
Встречаемся чаще, только встречаемся. Любим.
So, and then here's Nanel. Nanel used to work for the Ukrainian president in parliament from the 70s to the 90s. The nurses told me she was upset she couldn't curl her hair before leaving, as seen below prior to the war. Looking forward to more curls and smiles from Nanel when she and her daughter reunite. And then the update from this morning was the help of our network of volunteers. Nanel's daughter arrived from the United States. I took her to see her mom for the first time since she last saw her in Ukraine in September.
Oh, goodness. That's a long word. Мамочка, привет. Это Наташа. Это Наташа, мамочка. Ты узнаешь меня? Узнаешь? Мамочка, узнаешь меня?
Но мы соединиться с вами сможем?
Конечно, мы же соединяемся. Я тебя заберу к себе.
Ну вот.
Конечно, конечно. Слышишь меня? Это я, это Наташа. Ты узнаешь меня? Да?
Ничего.
Наташа, твоя дочка.
А?
Наташа, твоя дочка.
Ну, Наташа.
Да.
Что ты хочешь?
Нет, я говорю, что я тебя заберу к себе, солнышко, моя ласточка. Моя хорошая, я приехала за тобой.
Да, я ж не знаю, когда они идут и куда идут.
Ничего, не волнуйся, все будет хорошо. Хорошо, хорошо, очень рада тебя видеть.
Хорошо.
Поверить не могу, поверить не могу.
Спасибо.
Конечно, конечно.
All right, and then things got even better once the facility found Nanel a hearing aid.
Молодец, молодец. Ты меня слышишь, хорошо? Ну и все, браво. I asked if she can hear me. She said yes, and she smiled, so that's great. Молодец. Очень хорошо. Мамочка, я сейчас пойду Андрюшу провожу, и потом приду к тебе, хорошо?
Кого, Гриша?
Нет, Андрюшу.
Андрюша.
Then we have communication, honey. She said, Grisha. I said, Андрюша. Мам, помаши ручкой. Андрюша, помаши ручкой, Андрюша.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I will be returning again at 9 a.m. Central Time, Mercado on the 9s. Spam those reactions, like the video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, you have your notifications on, make sure you're following the page. Consider becoming a supporter of the page, consider becoming a member of the YouTube channel. Live Ukraine coverage again at 9 a.m. Central Time and 9 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. All right, Monday through Friday. See you guys again tomorrow. Spam those reactions. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.